Chapter 200. Yes. He said it would be in a few days, but he hasn't come yet. He probably wouldn't come. Su Qingsang thought of something and her expression changed. What's wrong? Shi Mingwan put away the needles. The final process was completed. She looked at the wedding dress and felt that it was perfect. She washed her hands and found Su Qingsang in a daze. What happened to you? You don't look good. I'm thinking that you probably won't need this wedding dress anymore. Why? My sister, Su Peijian, seems to have cancelled the engagement with Qiu Yanba. Since they won't get married, they won't come to get this wedding dress. Really? Shi Mingwan also knew about the Su family. Although her family couldn't compare with the Su and Li families, they were still a small family. How could it be cancelled? Such a well-matched marriage has been arranged for several years. How could it be cancelled just like that? She suddenly approached Su Qingsang with a face full of gossip. Could it be that Qiu Yanba cheated on her? Fortunately, Shi Mingwan was beautiful. Otherwise, if someone else made such an expression, it would definitely be very wretched. I don't think so. At most, he had a change of heart. No way? Really? Su Qingsang didn't know why Qiu Yanba suddenly wanted to cancel the engagement with Su Peijian. Look at you, you must know the inside story. Tell me quickly. Shi Mingwan hooked her arm, looking as if she wanted her to quickly satisfy her curiosity. Su Qingsang was speechless. Why are you so curious? Of course I'm curious. Shi Mingwan raised her eyebrows. Your sister always seems to have eyes on the top of her head. She doesn't like anyone and wants to stab them when she sees them. I really want to know who on earth could take away your brother-in-law's heart under the nose of someone like her. Su Qingsang didn't know what to say. She's not as exaggerated as you said. More exaggerated than I said. Shi Mingwan shook her arm. Tell me, do you know the inside story? What do I know? I only know that Qiu Yanba seems to like someone else. It wasn't like it was the truth, but Su Qingsang couldn't say it. This kind of thing was really embarrassing. Heavens, do you know who it is? Su Qingsang, two voices rang out at the same time. Su Qingsang was startled by the sudden sound. He turned around and realized that Su Peijian had arrived without him noticing. She glared at her, and the resentment on her face was hard to hide. What did you say? When Su Qingsang saw her, she cursed in her heart. Talking behind someone's back and being caught red-handed was indeed a little embarrassing. Sis. Don't call me sister. I don't have a sister like you. Su Peijian was also acting on a whim today. Although her marriage with Qiu Yanba had fallen through, she still couldn't bear to part with him. It was one thing for them to be well-matched in terms of social status. She was also sincere to Qiu Yanba. Since they couldn't get married, they could just take the wedding dress and keep it as a souvenir. But who would have thought that she would hear such news? You said that Qiu Yanba has a woman he likes outside? Previously, she kept saying that they were not suitable and that there were no feelings between them. Su Peijian thought that Qiu Yanba was tired of being with her every day. But she didn't know that there was an inside story. She stood in front of Su Qingsang angrily. At this moment, Su Peijian hated her too. Chapter 201. Laughing at Su Peijian? Why would she say that? I didn't. Su Qingsang shook her head and looked calm. Even if she didn't have a sisterly relationship with Su Peijian, she wouldn't think of laughing at her. You didn't? You didn't? You just said that you knew Yanba had a change of heart? Su Peijian's face darkened. She was sure that Su Qingsang didn't say it on purpose. She was the last one to know that her man had a change of heart? Was there anything more ridiculous than this? Su Qingsang had nothing to say. Think what you want. I did know it by accident. Accident? Su Peijian nodded. Her expression was a bit fierce. Since it was an accident, why don't you tell me who that woman is? I don't know. Su Qingsang answered very quickly. Only Shi Mingwan, who knew her very well, could see the difference from her accidentally moving fingers. She looked at Su Qingsang with some gossip. Her best friend was good enough. Not only did she know about Qiu Yanba's affair, but she also knew who the woman was. You don't know? Su Peijian didn't believe it at all. If you really don't know, then how did you know that Yanba had a change of heart? You obviously know the person. Did you not tell me on purpose? No. Su Qingsang didn't want to answer this question. Sister, I really don't know. Good, very good. Su Peijian nodded. You don't know who it is, but you know he had a change of heart? Su Qingsang had nothing to say. Su Peijian wouldn't let it go like this. You knew he had a change of heart, but you didn't tell me? Su Qingsang, is this how a sister should be? Su Qingsang was a bit speechless. Would you believe me if I told you? Then how do you know I won't believe you if you don't tell me? Who would you believe? Would you believe me? Or Chiu Yanba? Su Qingsang didn't want to get involved in this mess at all. Sister, can you be reasonable? She didn't do anything back then, but Su Peijian already thought that she coveted Chiu Yanba. How dare she say those things in front of her now? Su Peijian didn't say anything. She stared at Su Qingsang with hatred and finally nodded heavily. Su Qingsang, you're good. Shi Mingwan watched Su Peijian leave angrily and turned to face Su Qingsang. Qingsang, aren't you good? Su Qingsang was having a headache, so she didn't want to talk about it. Alright, don't talk about it. Don't. My gossipy heart has been ignited by you. Tell me, who is the woman who made Chiu Yanba abandon the eldest daughter of the Su family? Su Qingsang pulled her hand away and looked helpless. 5 minutes later, after hearing the whole story, Shi Mingwan's eyes widened. Oh my god, Qingsang, are you serious? You even managed to deal with the Chiu family's young master? Shu, keep your voice down. Su Qingsang wanted to cover her mouth. You want everyone to know, don't you? Don't worry, someone will come here for the time being. Shi Mingwan looked like she had never expected this. I really didn't expect you to have such charm. I'd rather not. Shi Mingwan looked at her and nodded slightly. That's true. It's considered a rotten peach blossom. She suddenly sat up straight and looked at Su Qingsang with concern. Qingsang, I think you should be more careful. Miss Su is not someone to be trifled with. She's still so angry even though she doesn't know about you and Chiu Yanba. What if she finds out? Chapter 202. What's wrong? Hua Jinyao noticed something was wrong with Su Qingsang when he got home. Honey, what happened? Nothing. Su Qingsang didn't know what to say. She couldn't help but look at Hua Jinyao. She didn't look like she was fine. Hua Jinyao stretched out his hand and pulled the corners of her mouth. Nothing. You don't even smile? Didn't you go to play with your good friend today? What's wrong? Didn't you have fun? Su Qingsang shook her head and looked at Hua Jinyao. Finally, she told him what had happened. She didn't know when she had gotten used to confiding in him. She had always been used to solving problems by herself. She didn't know when Hua Jinyao started to make her feel at ease. She could start to trust him. At least, she was willing to believe that he wouldn't hurt her or hurt her. Hua Jinyao's expression didn't change. What's there to worry about? You didn't instigate Chiu Yanba to break off the engagement. That's true, but no buts. Hua Jinyao took her hand and put it in his palm. He put his other hand around her shoulder. Chiu Yanba is an adult. He needs to learn to be responsible for his own choices. He wanted to break off the engagement. He didn't want her. Even if Su Peijian found out and came to you to settle the score, what's the reason? Su Qingsang had nothing to say. Hua Jinyao turned her face to look at him with an extremely serious expression. Honey, even if she wants to pester you endlessly, it's fine. But Chiu Yanba said he likes you, but he brought you so much trouble. Don't you think that these problems need to be solved by him? He was right. Su Qingsang followed Hua Jinyao's train of thought and couldn't help but nod. So, Su Peijian isn't your trouble. She's Chiu Yanba's trouble. If Chiu Yanba has a change of heart, even without you, there will be someone else. If that's the case, what's there to worry about? Su Qingsang was silent. She looked at Hua Jinyao's handsome face for a while and finally said, Hua Jinyao, I found that you're really good at talking. He had a way of persuading people. And she couldn't refute it. You're good at talking? Hua Jinyao kissed her on the cheek as he spoke. I think so too. No, I think I'm better at talking. Don't you agree? As he spoke, his gaze swept over a certain part of her body. Su Qingsang couldn't stand it anymore. She crossed her arms in front of her chest. Where are you looking? Look wherever you want. Hua Jinyao pulled her hand away and moved closer to her again. Honey, tonight I'll let you have a taste of my eloquence. Stop it. Su Qingsang pushed him away. I'm hungry. Let's eat. Sister Lu had already prepared dinner and left earlier. The food was still warm and ready to eat. Su Qingsang couldn't take it anymore. The two of them sat down at the dining table one after the other. Hua Jinyao scooped a bowl of soup for Su Qingsang and placed it in front of her. Seeing that she looked much more relaxed than before, he asked tentatively. Honey, have you really decided to go back to work tomorrow? Yeah. Didn't we agree on it? Can you take a few days off from work? Leave? What? You see, it's really too much for your hospital to treat you like this. You're so obedient and you went back just because they told you to. Don't you have no ambition? Chapter 203. That's one aspect. Hua Jinyao gestured for her to continue drinking the soup. You have to show the hospital their attitude. You're not someone they can fire or suspend at will. Su Qingsang was his wife. It would be strange if he wasn't angry at the hospital's attitude. And then? Secondly, aren't you annoyed with Su Peijian? Since she knows that you know about Qiu Yanba, she will definitely come looking for you. Even if she can't do anything to you, she's angry right now. Don't you think avoiding her is a good choice? He wasn't afraid of Su Peijian, but he really wanted Su Qingsang to accompany him to Rong City. Oh. It wasn't like Su Peijian didn't know where she lived. Where could she hide? Come to Rong City with me. Hua Jinyao looked serious. We're going to have fun for a few days. On one hand, we can avoid Su Peijian. On one hand, it'll let the hospital know that you're not a pushover. Su Qingsang resisted the urge to roll her eyes. Who could bully her? It was understandable for the hospital to handle it this way. But thinking about it, going to Rong City with Hua Jinyao didn't seem so unacceptable. Just for a few days? Just a few days. Hua Jinyao nodded and held her hand. It's all up to you. If you don't like staying there or if you don't like it, we'll come back right away. Su Qingsang lowered her head and concentrated on drinking the soup. She began to think about what Hua Jinyao had said. Su Peijian would definitely come looking for her again. Although she had a clear conscience, she really didn't want to argue with her over Qiu Yanba. Going to Rong City for a few days wasn't a bad idea. She suddenly looked up at Hua Jinyao and asked, "Do you have something to do in Rong City?" Hua Jinyao smiled and leaned over to kiss her on the cheek. That's why people say that my wife is smart. It's just a small matter. Su Qingsang almost spilled the soup in her hand. What is it? Are you sure you can solve it in just a few days? Sure. It's just a contract. He made it sound simple, so Su Qingsang didn't think too much about it. Recently, there were a lot of messy things happening around her. Thinking about it, going out to play for a few days was not a big deal. Su Qingsang was still a little tired when she boarded the plane. She yawned and wanted to sleep as soon as she sat down. Hua Jinyao very considerately picked up the blanket and covered her body. The flight will take more than 2 hours. If you're tired, you can take a nap on the plane. Su Qingsang glared at him. Who was responsible for her tiredness? Who made her so tired? This guy. She had only agreed to come to Rong City yesterday, but tonight he kept asking for her as if he had taken stimulants. She didn't want to admit that she had poor stamina. She could only blame him for having too much stamina. She closed her eyes to sleep. She was really sleepy. He slept until he got off the plane. After resting for a while, his body finally recovered some strength. When she got off the plane, the cold air made her shiver. Here, put on your coat. Hua Jinyao was prepared. He took out a thick woolen coat early in the morning. Su Qingsang was wrapped in the coat and felt the coldness dissipate a lot. She lowered her head to take a look. The dress didn't seem to be from her wardrobe. Where did the clothes come from? I bought it. Hua Jinyao straightened her clothes and said with a gentle expression, Rong City is not like Lin City. It's already very cold here. Are you cold? Do you want to buy a down jacket? No need. She wasn't that afraid of the cold. Let's go. Okay. Hua Jinyao held her hand and walked outside, but they hadn't left the airport yet. They met an acquaintance. Chapter 204. The man looked to be in his early 40s. He was dressed in Armani and looked very flamboyant. He was a little chubby and panted a little when he ran over. There were 3 or 4 people behind him and they were all following behind him. Armani didn't care about the others. He just looked at Hua Jinyao and reached out his hand. Mr. Hua, I didn't expect to see you here. What a coincidence. Hua Jinyao frowned and glanced at Su Qingsang from the corner of his eye. He had to reach out and shake hands with the other party. Mr. Hua, did you just come back from a business trip? The middle-aged chubby man was smart. I just came back. Mr. Hua is really busy every day. People like us can't compare at all. Hua Jinyao didn't reply. The man continued, Thank you for thinking so highly of the contract last time. Don't worry, we will do a good job. Mr. Hua, if you have such an opportunity next time, please help us. I can't thank you enough. Mr. Lin, you're welcome. You're also very capable. It's a small business. It's a small business. It can't compare to your Chanyu group. You can easily have projects worth billions or even tens of billions. Su Qingsang turned to look at Hua Jinyao. This was the second time she heard the words Chanyu group. Mr. Lin seemed to have just noticed Su Qingsang and his eyes lit up. This is my wife. Hello, Mrs. Hua. Mr. Lin reached out to shake Su Qingsang's hand. Su Qingsang politely reached out and smiled at him. Mrs. Hua is so beautiful and elegant. You and Mr. Hua are really a good match. CEO Lin's praises seemed to come out of his mouth like they were free. Su Qingsang felt a little uncomfortable listening to them. So did Hu Jinyao. Mr. Chu, I still have something to do here? Oh. Sorry. Excuse me. Mr. Hua, you're busy? I'll take my leave first. Mr. Lin took 2 steps back and stopped. If there's a chance next time, I'll treat you and Mrs. Hua to a meal. Mr. Hua, you must do me the honor. Hu Jinyao didn't say anything else. Mr. Lin waved his hand and said a lot of good things before leaving. Hu Jinyao turned his face and met Su Qingsang's probing gaze. Mr. Hua? Yes. Honey, actually I can explain. Hu Jinyao raised his hand. Su Qingsang nodded and said, It's okay. You have time to explain. Honey, what do you think about this? Shall we go home first? Go home? Which home? She knew that he was from Rong City, so it was not surprising that he had a family in Rong City. You'll know when you get there. I'll explain to you when we get there. Hu Jinyao smiled ingratiatingly. Su Qingsang gave him a meaningful look and followed him out of the airport. Someone had already come to pick them up. The man took the luggage and put it in the car, then went around to open the door for them. Finally, he returned to the car and started driving. He was well trained and didn't speak much. It was obvious that he wasn't an ordinary driver. Su Qingsang couldn't help but look at Hu Jinyao again. The airport wasn't close to the Hua mansion. Su Qingsang had rested on the plane, so she didn't feel like sleeping. She looked out the window at the scenery that was completely different from Lin City. Although it was already late autumn in Lin City, the weather was still relatively hot. Many people on the road were still wearing short-sleeved shirts. But the weather here was so bad that he had to wear a thick coat. The buildings, the weather, even the blue sky above was different. Chapter 205. Seeing that Su Qingsang was looking outside from time to time, he leaned over and introduced it to her. That's the largest central square in Rong City. Next to it is the largest department store in Rong City. Tianyu Group was involved in both of them. Many famous buildings in this city were built by Tianyu Group. Su Qingsang didn't say anything. The car drove away from the city center and gradually slowed down. Su Qingsang poked her head out to take a look. There were almost no people on both sides of the road. The car drove into a carved gate. They drove forward for a while before stopping. The driver got out of the car first and opened the door for them. Before Su Qingsang got out of the car, she was shocked by the building in front of her. It was completely in the style of a European castle from the last century. It was about 5 or 6 stories and looked like a Byzantine house. She stood at the door and looked at it. She could see a row of medium-sized fountains, extending from the main building to the entrance in the distance. On both sides were huge Roman columns with lifelike sculptures that looked like the work of a master. On both sides were European-style columns with all kinds of flowers and plants. On both sides were large green lawns. Su Qingsang subconsciously turned her face to look at Hu Jinyao. He was smiling brightly at her. Honey, we're here. Let's go in. Su Qingsang didn't move. She stood there and looked at Hu Jinyao. Is this your home? Hu Jinyao cleared his throat and nodded slightly. Yes. Su Qingsang felt her forehead twitch. Are you very rich? Not really. Hu Jinyao seemed to sense Su Qingsang's worry and quickly explained, My family is rich. I'm not very rich. He only had tens of billions of yuan under his name. He shouldn't be very rich. Yes. He wasn't lying. Su Qingsang didn't want to talk. She knew very well that his not being rich was not the same as hers being poor. What will you do if I don't want to go in? Honey? Hu Jinyao stepped forward and held her hand. Don't be like this. After all, you're already married to me. If you don't come in, do you want to stay in a hotel? That's not impossible. Of course not. Hu Jinyao put his arm around her waist. Okay, honey, what if you're angry? You can beat me up when we get in. Let's go in first. My grandfather knew you were coming and has been waiting for a long time. It would have been better if he hadn't mentioned it. Once he did, Su Qingsang was even more displeased. Hu Jinyao, you didn't tell me that you wanted to see your family. I didn't even prepare a gift. It's fine. I'm ready. Hu Jinyao quickly said, Honey, I'm ready. Don't be angry, okay? Seeing him like this, Su Qingsang couldn't get angry. The chauffeur who came to pick them up unloaded all the things in the car and brought them over. Mr. Hua, he had prepared many gifts for the elders. He looked at Su Qingsang and said, Honey, let's go in. She was already standing at the door, so Su Qingsang didn't seem to have a choice. He followed Hu Jinyao into the house. In the living room, the Hua family members who had known about his return were waiting for him. However, Hu Jinyao didn't expect everyone to be here. Grandfather Hu Yangping. His parents were Hu Mingguang and Lu Tongjia. His uncle Hu Mingliang, his two cousins Hu Yifan and Hu Yang, and his cousin Hu Manzi. Auntie Hu Mingmei and Uncle Wei Nantian. And his aunt's two children, Wei Sihai and Wei Siming. The whole family sat around the sofa. Chapter 206. She couldn't help but turn to look at Hu Jinyao. Old Master Hu had just seen Hu Jinyao walk through the door. "Jinyao, you're back." Old Master Hu reached out his hand. "Come here." Hu Jinyao walked forward with the bags in one hand. He held Su Qingsang's hand with one hand. "Grandpa, I'm back. You still know to come back?" Although he was happy about his grandson's return, the old man was not polite with his words. "I thought you forgot the way home." "How could that be?" Hu Jinyao was used to saying a few words every time he went out. Su Qingsang stood there, feeling at a loss for what to do for the first time. She could tell from the door that Hu Jinyao's family wasn't simple, but she didn't expect him to have so many family members. Would she have to live and interact with such a big family in the future? "Grandpa, I just wanted to bring my wife over to show you." While speaking, Hu Jinyao pushed Su Qingsang to the front and looked at Old Master Hua. "Grandpa, this is Su Qingsang, my wife. Qingsang, this is my grandfather." "Hello, Grandpa." Su Qingsang was a little reserved. She didn't have much experience with elders. The elders in her family didn't like her very much, so it was impossible for her to get close to them. Su Qingsang was a little scared to see an old man as dignified as Old Master Hua. "All right. Good." Old Master Hua nodded and looked at Su Qingsang. It seemed like a good idea. "I heard from Jinyao. Are you a doctor?" "Yes." Su Qingsang stood there with her back straight. "I just graduated from my medical postgraduate program not long ago." "Not bad, not bad." Old Master Hua was very satisfied, but Hu Mingguang and Lu Tongjia, who were sitting in the middle, didn't look happy. Hu Mingliang and his family were watching the show. As for Hu Mingmei's family, they did not have much power in the heaven domain, and they only received some dividends every year. However, Hu Mingmei had never liked Lu Tongjia, who was a proud sister-in-law. She was happy to see someone make trouble for her. "It must be tough being a doctor, right? I've heard Hu Jinyao talk about it a few times. It hasn't been easy for you." "Fortunately, it's not very tiring. Compared to the Department of Surgery and the Emergency Department, the Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology was much better. You still have to take care of your body. You're still young, so don't take it lightly." "Thank you for your concern, Grandpa. I will." Su Qingsang really didn't have any experience in getting along with the elderly. She only answered Old Master Hua's questions. However, Old Master Hua was unexpectedly easy to talk to. This made her feel a lot more at ease, even though she was still a little uneasy. Hu Jinyao gave the gift he had prepared in advance to Old Master Hua. "Grandpa, this is the gift Qingsang prepared for you. It's good that you're here. There's no need to give gifts. We're family, there's no need to be so polite." Although he said that, Old Master Hua was still very happy. Hu Jinyao handed the gifts to Hu Mingguang and Lu Tongjia. "Dad, Mom, this is the present Qingsang bought for you. Qingsang, these are my parents." She didn't know if it was an illusion, but when Hu Jinyao introduced his parents, he didn't seem as easygoing and friendly as when he introduced Old Master Hua. However, Su Qingsang still greeted him politely. "Hello, Dad, Mom." Lu Tongjia had no intention of taking it. She sat there and glanced at Su Qingsang's face coldly. Chapter 207. Su Qingsang's expression froze, and the atmosphere in the living room suddenly became eerily quiet. No one expected Lu Tongjia to react like this, let alone Su Qingsang and Hu Jinyao. "Tongjia." Old Master Hua glanced at Lu Tongjia. "What are you doing?" "Dad, am I doing this?" Lu Tongjia didn't admit it. He said that he wanted to get married without our parents' permission. He knew that the Hua family was engaged to the Su family, but he insisted on marrying this woman who came from nowhere. "Why am I doing this now?" Su Qingsang glanced at Hu Jinyao. She was angry at him for lying to her and hiding his identity. She didn't have time to lose her temper when she suddenly saw such a big family. How could she be despised by others first? "Mom." Hu Jinyao didn't look happy either. He stood in front of Su Qingsang with a cold face. His dark eyes were especially bright at this moment. He stared at Lu Tongjia and said, "Qingsang is not a woman who came from nowhere. She is my wife now." Hu Yifan and Hu Yang sat there and watched the show. The two brothers looked at each other and seemed to be very happy about the argument between Hu Jinyao and Lu Tongjia. "What's with your attitude? Did I agree to you two being together?" Lu Tongjia raised her voice, but Hu Jinyao didn't give in. I don't need your permission. I'm your mother. Then, you're my mother. Then what? I want you to divorce this woman immediately and marry Ruoli. Nonsense. Old Master Hu couldn't bear it anymore. Tongjia, you're not calm now. Talk to me when you calm down. Dad, I'm very calm. Lu Tongjia wanted to say something but was defeated by Old Master Hu's gaze. She had to sit back down, but she didn't like the way she looked at Hu Jinyao and Su Qingsang. Hu Jinyao ignored her and introduced Hu Mingguang. Hu Mingguang wasn't very happy either, but he was a man who had been in the business world for a long time. He nodded as a greeting. He accepted the gift from Hu Jinyao and put it on the coffee table without touching it. This is my uncle. Nice to meet you, uncle. These are my cousins Hu Yifan and Hui Yang. Hello. This is my aunt and uncle. This is my cousin Wei Sihai and my cousin Wei Siming. Hello. After introducing everyone, Hu Jinyao presented the gifts one by one. Su Qingsang looked at him and felt that he was really polite. He had been like this when he went to her house. Now that she had come to his house, although he didn't tell her in advance, such preparation still touched her a little. After the introduction, Hu Jinyao held Su Qingsang's hand and was about to go upstairs. Lu Tongjia couldn't take it anymore. Hu Jinyao, don't be so stubborn. Willful? How am I being willful? Hu Jinyao raised his eyebrows in confusion. Lu Tongjia was furious. I told you I don't agree to your marriage. I want you to divorce this woman, you hear me, aunt? Su Qingsang spoke abruptly. Everyone was looking at her and she was looking at Lu Tongjia. Sorry, my name is Su Qingsang. Su as in Su Dongpa, Qing as in green grass, Sang as in mulberry leaves. I'm not that woman. She emphasized the word woman when she said woman. Chapter 208. Hu Jinyao rarely saw Lu Tongjia being humiliated. He was proud but he didn't laugh. It was hard for him to hold back his laughter. Su Qingsang wasn't afraid of his stare. I'm sorry. I'm married to Hu Jinyao. It's not about whether you agree or not. We're already together. What do you mean? Lu Tongjia's voice was sharp. Su Qingsang cleared her throat and said, I don't mean anything. I just want to tell you that you want Hu Jinyao to divorce me. Have you ever thought about how Hu Jinyao will divorce me if I don't agree? Hu Jinyao almost applauded for Su Qingsang. Good. She was indeed the woman he liked. Lu Tongjia became angrier when she saw the expression on her son's face. I've seen many women like you. All you want is money. Just tell me how much you want. Tongjia. Old Master Hu couldn't bear it anymore. However, Su Qingsang smiled. She looked at Lu Tongjia and found it funny. Auntie, you seem to have misunderstood something. Speaking of which, Hu Jinyao lived in my house and drove my car in Lin City. I didn't know who he was at that time. In other words, she didn't do it for money. Wei Sihai wanted to clap his hands for his cousin. The young master of the Hua family lived in a woman's house and drove a woman's car? Iske, what a promising young man. Nonsense. Lu Tongjia couldn't bear it anymore. Do you know how much Hu Jinyao is worth? He needs to live in your house? That's a joke. You can ask your own son whether it's a joke or not. Su Qingsang turned to look at Hu Jinyao and quickly looked away. I don't care how much Hu Jinyao is worth. I don't need you to believe it. After all, you're not anyone to me yet. As for me and Hu Jinyao, I'm sorry. I don't like him keeping such an important thing from me. I'm not tired of him yet. So if you want me to divorce him, that's impossible. It was the first time that Hu Jinyao had seen Su Qingsang's eloquence. He almost wanted to step forward, put his arm around Su Qingsang's shoulder, and give her a big kiss on the cheek. The smug look on her face was really annoying. Lu Tongjia almost lost control of herself again. Hu Jinyao knew when to stop. He reached out to hold Su Qingsang's hand. Grandpa, Dad. Qingsang must be tired. I'll take her upstairs to rest. Grandpa, excuse me for a moment. Su Qingsang could tell that among all the people there, only Old Master Hua really wanted her to come. As for the others, forget it. After greeting Old Master Hua, the two of them went upstairs together. Dad, look at them. What kind of attitude is that? Lu Tongjia was not satisfied with her daughter-in-law, nor was she satisfied with her son. All right. Old Master Hua still didn't know about her. Everyone is here today. Don't mention those disappointing things. But, if you still recognize me as an old man, then some things will end here. Don't talk about it anymore. No matter how dissatisfied Lu Tongjia was with her son and daughter-in-law, she couldn't disobey the old man. Right now he could only let it go. However, Su Qingsang didn't know whether she was willing to let it go or not. Even if she knew, she wouldn't care. After she left the Hua family's sight, her face turned cold. She took the opportunity to withdraw her hand from Hua Jinyao's grasp and stood aside a little. Chapter 209. Seeing the change in her expression, Hua Jinyao took her hand and went upstairs. Come, let's go upstairs and have a look. Su Qingsang stood still on the stairs and looked at Hua Jinyao. I think I should leave now. Don't. Honey, you can't leave. Holding Su Qingsang's hand, Hua Jinyao said with a roguish smile, If you leave, where can I find such a good wife? What a glib tongue. Don't try that on me. It's useless. Honey, look at you. I'm speaking from the bottom of my heart. Why don't you believe me? Su Qingsang didn't even look at him. Seeing that she didn't move, Hua Jinyao quickly took her hand and led her upstairs. I live on the 3rd floor. There's an elevator in the corner on the other side, but I like to take the stairs. The house had a total of 6.5 floors. On the 1st floor there was a living room, dining room, kitchen, banquet room, multipurpose room and gym. The 2nd floor is my grandfather's room and our study room. I lived on the 3rd floor and there were a few guest rooms. The 4th floor was for my parents and the 5th and 6th floors were mostly guest rooms. But I've prepared a room for the group of people downstairs. Hua Jinyao took her hand and led her upstairs, introducing the place to her. Su Qingsang didn't say anything. She looked at the exquisite carvings on both sides and the painting hanging at the corner of the stairs. Everything in front of her was the complete opposite of the world she lived in. She went up to the 3rd floor and entered the room. Su Qingsang was shocked by the size of the room. Even though she had just heard Hua Jinyao's introduction, she was still a little surprised. The spacious room looked like it was half the size of her apartment. Pure European-style decoration. Carved big bed, handmade Italian furniture. There was also the imperial concubine's chair, which looked extremely comfortable and expensive, placed on the balcony. Su Qingsang glanced at Hua Jinyao, who was also looking at her. Honey, the luggage has been brought up. There's a cloakroom over here and I'll get someone to prepare clothes for you. She brought Su Qingsang to the walk-in closet. Her luggage had already been carried up. Su Qingsang glanced at the cloakroom, which was even bigger than her room, and then looked at the high-end custom-made clothes hanging in it. She didn't know much about fashion, but she knew that these clothes were expensive. Just like the custom-made suit hanging beside her hand. She had once heard from Shi Mengwan that a suit cost more than 200,000 yuan. Some rich people had specially ordered it from abroad to be used as a wedding dress. But now it was just hanging with the rest of the clothes. Su Qingsang turned to look at Hua Jinyao. She remembered that when he had moved into her house with a suitcase, her little closet had been filled with his clothes of unknown brands. Should she say that he was putting on a good act? It should be said that he was really condescending in front of her. What happened? Su Qingsang's gaze gave Hua Jinyao goosebumps. He leaned forward to look at Su Qingsang. Honey, what's wrong? Wuxia. Su Qingsang mimicked the way the man addressed her at the airport. Her tone was calm and emotionless. You've been living with me for the past few months. I'm sorry. Honey, what are you talking about? Hua Jinyao smiled awkwardly. What did I say? Su Qingsang walked into the cloakroom and unconsciously touched the clothes hanging on it. She turned to look at him with a mocking expression. Chapter 210. I'm really not. Hua Jinyao stepped forward and held her hand. Honey, don't be like this. I was wrong. I was wrong, okay? You weren't wrong. What did you do wrong? Su Qingsang withdrew her hand, and there was a hint of coldness in the corners of her eyes. I think you should listen to your mother and divorce me. After all, a woman like me might really be with you for your money. Don't you think so? Honey. Hua Jinyao was about to lose to her. Just say it. Don't belittle yourself like this. How is it belittling? I'm telling the truth. Su Qingsang was indeed very angry. She was angry that Hua Jinyao hid it from her and that he took matters into his own hands. If he had informed her about the situation today, she wouldn't have been so passive downstairs. Yes. On the surface, it seemed that she didn't suffer any losses. But in reality, it was the first day she met his family and she left such an impression on them. Right now, she felt like she had nothing left to live for. Honey. Hua Jinyao wanted to laugh it off. How could Su Qingsang agree? Don't call me that. Your mother's words make sense. Your family is so rich. I'm just an illegitimate daughter. Of course, I'm not good enough for you. Su Qinghui was born a commoner. After he got together with Li Qianxue, he slowly made his fortune. Although he was outstanding, the Su family only lived in a large villa. The old house of the Li family could be compared to the Hua family. But in terms of location and value, it couldn't compare to the Hua family. Su Qing-sang really didn't know that the man she had casually married was actually so powerful. The young master of the Huo family? She didn't even need to check it now. How could she forget Tianyu Group? It was a group that had businesses all over the country and was even more powerful than the Li family. With Huo Jinyao's status, he could marry any woman he wanted. No wonder Huo Jinyao's mother didn't like her and didn't want her to be with Huo Jinyao. Honey. Huo Jinyao was shocked by Su Qingsang's words. He grabbed her hand and asked, "Are you angry with me? Can't I be angry?" Su Qingsang pulled her hand back. "You hid it from me for so long. Do you think I'm wrong to be angry?" That's right. That's right. Huo Jinyao cleared his throat and reached for Su Qingsang's hand again. Look, no matter how much money the Huo family has, it's the Huo family's money, not mine, so I'm not lying to you. Please forgive me. Forgive you? Su Qingsang nodded. Sure. But I have a condition. What? Divorce. Su Qingsang said casually, this is a marriage built on deception. I want to leave. Her lips were blocked so she couldn't say the rest of her words. Su Qingsang found it hard to breathe and reached out to push him away. He bit down on her lips as if punishing her. Su Qingsang felt the pain and pushed harder. Huo Jinyao finally stepped back, but he didn't let go of her. He pressed her against the wall of the walk-in closet and restrained her hands, not letting her break free. He pressed his forehead against hers and stared at her face with a pair of burning eyes. Su Qingsang blushed because of the breath he was exhaling. Chapter 211. She couldn't move and could only stare at him. Huo Jinyao, you rascal. I'm a rascal. What's wrong? He leaned over and bit her lips. I'm only a rascal to you. Su Qingsang's heart was beating fast. She looked at the man and said, let me go. What are you doing? What do you mean? Huo Jinyao put his arms around her waist. I think it's good. Very good. As he spoke, he kissed her again. Su Qingsang blushed and even forgot why she was angry in the first place. Get out of my way. Stop it. I'm not. Huo Jinyao put his arms around her waist. Honey, I want you. This guy was really... Su Qingsang was still trying to push him away when someone knocked on the door. Huo Jinyao stopped for a moment. The servant's voice came from outside the door. Young master, dinner will be ready soon. The old master asked you to take young mistress downstairs for dinner. Right away. Huo Jinyao responded and let go of Su Qingsang. He took a small step back and said, okay. Don't be angry. Let's go down for dinner. No. Su Qingsang looked a little uncomfortable. I don't want to go down. Honey, your mother doesn't like me. I'm afraid that if I go down she'll be too angry to eat. You don't care whether she likes you or not. Huo Jinyao took her hand. I like you. Huo Jinyao. He thought that everyone was as open-minded as he was. They didn't care about anything. She doesn't even like me. How could she like you? Huo Jinyao's voice was a little low. Su Qingsang froze for a moment and said without thinking, are you also an illegitimate child? As soon as she finished speaking, she was hit on the forehead. What nonsense are you talking about? After Huo Jinyao knocked on her forehead, he saw that she looked like she was in a lot of pain, so he rubbed her forehead again. I've thought about this too, but I've done a paternity test. I'm my mother's biological son. Then why doesn't she like you? Wasn't that too strange? Which mother didn't like her own son? Huo Jinyao withdrew his hand, took her hand and walked outside. Who knows? Maybe we are born incompatible and she doesn't like me. There was a flash of gloom in his eyes, but it was too quick for Su Qingsang to notice. She turned to look at Huo Jinyao, feeling a little more sympathy for him. Li Qianxue and Su Qinghui didn't like her because she was an illegitimate daughter. However, it was strange that Huo Jinyao's parents didn't like him even though he was their own child. She was sure that things weren't as simple as they seemed. It couldn't be like what Huo Jinyao said. But from the looks of it, he obviously didn't want to talk about it. He was a little curious, but he didn't ask any more. Seeing that he didn't look too good, Su Qingsang spoke subconsciously. Maybe it's not that your mom doesn't like you, it's just that she's going through menopause. Huo Jinyao turned around and looked at her in shock. When he met her extremely serious gaze, he suddenly burst out laughing. Ha 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 ha. The gloominess in his eyes disappeared, and he leaned over to kiss Su Qingsang's cheek. Honey, you're so cute. Su Qingsang blushed again. She wiped the non-existent saliva off her face and glared at him. Go downstairs and eat. Yes, honey. Chapter 212. Today all the members of the Huo family were present. Su Qingsang had never had the experience of eating together with such a large family. Old Master Li only had one daughter, Li Qianxue. The Li family was a small family. The Su family was even more so. After all, Su Qinghue's parents had passed away a long time ago. As soon as they entered the dining room, they saw that the large round table was full of people. The Hua family had two dining rooms. One was a European-style dining room with a European-style long table. Usually, if the other members of the Hua family didn't come, Old Master Hua would eat in this dining room. If many people came, they would eat in this dining room. Compared with the European-style buildings outside, this dining room had a completely different style. The round table inside was specially booked by Old Master Hua. The large round table could seat 20 people and there was a wheel on it. It was the first time that Su Qingsang saw someone use a wheel at home. She glanced around and saw that Hua Jinyao's uncle and aunt's family were sitting on one side and the other. Hua Mingguang and Lu Tongjia were sitting on the left side of Old Master Hua. There were 2 seats left on the right side. Seeing Hua Jinyao and Lu Tongjia enter the door, Old Master Hua waved at them and said, "Come, sit here." Su Qingsang instinctively looked at Hua Jinyao, but he took her hand and sat down next to Old Master Hua. When Hua Yifan and Hua Yang saw this, they looked at each other and understood the meaning in each other's eyes. Lu Tongjia didn't look good. She really didn't like this daughter-in-law, but Old Master Hua had spoken, so she couldn't object. She was angry, so she looked at Hua Jinyao and Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang couldn't help being stared at by her mother-in-law like that, so she subconsciously glanced at Hua Jinyao. Hua Jinyao was also looking at her and patted the back of her hand under the table to comfort her. Su Qingsang relaxed a lot because of his action. The two of them were very subtle in their actions. However, the feelings that were revealed from their gazes still shocked everyone else present. Hua Yifan narrowed his eyes, and there was a flash of deep meaning in his eyes. The other people had different expressions, but the surprise in their eyes was not less. Lu Tongjia sat next to Old Master Hua and naturally saw her son's little gestures. She looked more and more worried. The closer Hua Jinyao was to Su Qingsang, the worse she looked. Hua Mingguang wasn't as direct as Lu Tongjia, but he narrowed his eyes slightly because of his son's behavior. The only one who was happy was probably Old Master Hua. Today I am very happy. It was not only because Jinyao was back but also because Jinyao had a family. The ancients said that one should start a family and start a career. Now that the family has been established, Jinyao, you have to start taking care of it. Do you know? Yes, Grandpa. Don't worry, I won't let you down. The conversation made the Hua brothers, Wei Sihai, and the others all have different expressions on their faces. Grandpa Sheng turned to look at Su Qingsang as if he didn't see it. Qingsang, I'm very happy that you're going home with Jinyao. Since you married into the Hua family, you are a part of the Hua family. How about this? I don't have anything else to give you. I have a villa in the West District, so take it as a greeting gift. Tomorrow, I'll have someone accompany you to handle the transfer procedures. As soon as these words came out, his cousins were astonished and shocked again. The expressions of the Hua brothers changed slightly. Even Wei Ximing's expression was very ugly. She knew that villa. When she was 20 years old, she wanted Grandpa to give it to her, but Grandpa refused. Chapter 213. Old Master Hua acted as if he didn't see it. Even if he saw it, he wouldn't change his mind. Grandpa. Su Qingsang couldn't sit still anymore. This gift is too expensive. I can't accept it. There's nothing you can't accept. Old Master Hua waved his hand. Things are dead but people are alive. You married Jinyao, so you are the eldest granddaughter-in-law of the Hua family. You don't have to worry about this. But, Su Qingsang subconsciously looked at Hua Jinyao. Hua Jinyao squeezed Su Qingsang's hand to tell her not to be nervous. Since I said I'll give it to you, it's yours. Don't worry and accept it. Old Master Hua's eyes swept around the table and finally returned to Su Qingsang's face. He said again, don't be nervous. It's not just you. If you can give birth to a boy or a girl for the Hua family in the future, my shares will also be given to him. Grandpa. Su Qingsang really felt a lot of pressure. She wasn't ready to be a mother yet. It's okay. I'm old and half of my body is in the grave. My property will eventually belong to you, won't it? The table was very quiet. Hua Mingmei bit her lip and almost broke her nails. Hua Mingliang's face didn't change, but the gloominess in his eyes could be easily seen. As for the other younger generations, they were even more incompetent. They couldn't hide the dissatisfaction in their eyes. Old Master Hua didn't seem to see the undercurrent. He waved his hand and asked the housekeeper to start serving the dishes. That. Hua Mingmei couldn't help it. Her surname was Hua too. Except for some shares, she couldn't touch anything in the Hua family. She was already very uncomfortable. She knew that villa. Old Master Hua had countless properties under his name, but that one was the best in location and decoration. It was worth nearly 100 million yuan. She wanted to ask for it for her daughter's birthday, but she didn't get it. Now he just gave it to a little girl? Jinyao and his wife don't live in Rong City often. I don't think they can use such a big villa, Hua Jinyao said. Not to mention that the two of them still live there. Whether she can use it or not, it's her business. How she uses it and when she uses it is her business. How could old Master Hua not know what his daughter was planning? It wasn't that he valued men over women. It was just that after years of observation, there were some things that he was well aware of. But, Hua Mingmei still wanted to say something, but Wei Nantian, who was sitting next to her, pulled her arm and gave her a look, signaling her to stop talking. She could only shut her mouth in embarrassment. The servants began to serve the dishes. Su Qingsang had always tried to minimize her presence when she was eating in the Su family, and she did the same here. However, even if she wanted to reduce her sense of existence, she couldn't resist the fact that there was someone beside her who was trying his best to magnify her sense of existence. Qingsang, try this. Aunt Wang's fried fish is the best. This fish is the best. Qingsang, try this. This beef is very tender. Qingsang, have some soup. Auntie Wang made this soup early in the morning. It's very soft. Try it. Su Qingsang was already uncomfortable sitting in front of so many people. Now that Hua Jinyao was doing this, more people were staring at her. She felt more and more uncomfortable. You don't have to take it, I can eat it myself. It's okay, I like to pick up food for you. Chapter 214. She was already eye-catching when she first arrived, but he still acted this way. Although he usually acted like this in Lin City, his behavior today was very eye-catching. She was even glad that he didn't call her his wife in front of so many people. Otherwise she would feel even more uncomfortable. This is a specialty of Rong City. Try it. Hua Jinyao picked up some more food as he spoke. Lu Tongjia, who was sitting on the other side, couldn't stand it anymore. She slammed her chopsticks on the table and glared at the two people in front of her. Let's just eat. Why are you so fussy? What? Doesn't she have hands? Hua Jinyao didn't change his expression at all when he saw the dissatisfaction in his mother's eyes. The faint smile on his face looked like a provocation. She does have hands, but I like to put food in her bowl and I like to watch her finish all the food I put in her bowl. Mom, if you don't think it's appropriate, you can ask Dad to put food in your bowl. What kind of attitude is that? Lu Tongjia's face turned green. Do you think everyone is as indecent as you? I don't think it's indecent. Hua Jinyao seemed to deliberately oppose Lu Tongjia. He picked up some more food and put it in Su Qingsang's bowl. Qingsang is my wife. I like to take care of her. I think it's a good idea. Lu Tongjia was about to lose her temper, but old Master Hua glanced at her and said, All right, let's eat. Lu Tongjia couldn't finish her words under old Master Hua's glare. She was furious. Old Master Hua looked at Su Qingsang lovingly and said, Qingsang, don't be shy. Eat whatever you want. You can ask Auntie Wang to make it for you later. Also, don't feel embarrassed when Jinyao puts food in your bowl. Su Qingsang felt that more people were looking at her, and she became more and more uncomfortable. How could this be considered a meal? It was torture. After the meal was finally over, the group of people moved to the living room. The servants served tea and fruits after the meal. They were all cut into small pieces and placed very delicately. Su Qingsang couldn't eat earlier, so she had indigestion now. She refused the fruit that Hua Jinyao handed to her and sat next to him at old Master Hua's gesture. Seeing this, the other people all had different expressions. Everyone looked at the scene in front of them and knew that old Master Hua really valued this granddaughter-in-law today. Even Su Qingsang herself felt flattered. She didn't think that she was so likable. Not to mention the fact that she had no experience in interacting with the elderly. What she didn't know was that old Master Hua loved Hua Jinyao, so he would naturally like the person his grandson liked. Is it hard working in the hospital? It's all right. If you feel tired, tell Jinyao and ask him to change hospitals for you. As he spoke, he turned to look at Hua Jinyao. Go talk to that kid from the Qing family and see if their hospital needs people. He didn't forget to explain to Su Qingsang, this Qing boy grew up with Jinyao. His family owns a hospital chain across the country. There were also many Class 3 Grade A hospitals. Let him know which hospital you want to go to. Hearing this, Su Qingsang's expression changed slightly. Just as she was about to explain, Hua Jinyao spoke first. Grandpa, I don't want to work in Rong City. As soon as he said this, everyone's eyes fell on Su Qingsang. Even old Master Hua couldn't control his expression. Chapter 215. Everyone was staring at her, which made Su Qingsang feel pressured again. She glanced at old Master Hua uncomfortably. Grandpa, I'm sorry. I'm only here to accompany Hua Jinyao for a few days. In fact, I haven't decided to come to Rong City yet. The living room was silent. Everyone looked at Su Qingsang. It didn't feel good to be stared at by such a group of people. Su Qingsang was the same. She was a little nervous. Jinyao. Old Master Hua stopped looking at her and looked at Hua Jinyao. Hua Jinyao sighed in his heart and sat down beside Su Qingsang. Grandpa, she's doing fine in Lin City. Even if you want her to come over, you have to let her adapt first, right? What's there to adapt to? Lu Tongjia sneered. I'm already married to you. Of course I'll follow you. Hearing this, Su Qingsang frowned again, and Hua Jinyao's face darkened. Su Qingsang couldn't help but say, Auntie, even if you don't think you're human, you don't have to say it out loud. What did you say? Lu Tongjia's face turned green. Who are you talking about? I didn't curse. Su Qingsang didn't like Lu Tongjia very much. Li Qianxua didn't like her, but at least she could maintain a peaceful front. Hua Jinyao's mother was not polite at all. You said Hua Jinyao was a chicken or a dog. You gave birth to him, so aren't you scolding yourself too? Her voice was very soft, but her words were full of protection for Hua Jinyao. Lu Tongjia's chest heaved with anger. Old Master Hua glared at her. All right. You're already so old. Don't you know what to say? Lu Tongjia gritted her teeth. She had just spoken without thinking. He glared at Su Qingsang. This woman did have a sharp tongue. The more she thought about it, the more she disliked it. Qingsang, have you enjoyed the new year? Let Jinyao take you to the hospitals in Rong City for a few days. You should take a look too. No matter what, you're married to Jinyao. Naturally, wherever he is, you'll be there too. Don't you agree? That was true. Su Qingsang didn't resist coming to Rong City at first. However, after seeing Lu Tongjia, she didn't want to. Grandpa, let me think about it. Yes. It doesn't matter. You can think about it. If you don't want to live with us, Jinyao has a house in the city. You can also go to the world of just the two of you. I got it. Thank you, Grandpa. The only person Su Qingsang liked now was old Master Hua. In the entire Hua family, it seemed that only Grandpa Hua truly loved Hua Jinyao and cared for him. Yes. Since you're here, don't be shy. We'll be a family in the future. You don't have anything to do in the afternoon, so don't stay at home. Let Jinyao accompany you to walk around. Thank you, Grandpa. You guys go ahead. I'm going upstairs to rest for a while. Old Master Hua had the habit of taking a lunch break every day. Su Qingsang stood up and followed Hua Jinyao to greet the elders before leaving. Although Lu Tongjia didn't like her, she was still very polite. As expected, the two of them didn't stand on ceremony. Anyway, Su Qingsang had already rested on the plane in the morning. After she left, Grandfather Hua didn't rush upstairs. Instead, he glanced at the crowd. Chapter 216. Everyone looked at each other, and the younger generation fell silent. Hua Mingguang looked at his father helplessly. Dad, what are you talking about? Who would dare to do anything to her? Didn't you see Jinyao protecting her? That's what he should do. Shouldn't a man protect his wife? If he can't even protect his wife, what can he do? After saying this, old Master Hua got up and prepared to go upstairs to rest. Before leaving, he glanced at Lu Tongjia. Tongjia, I know you want Ruoli to marry Jinyao. But now they're married. You should stop thinking about it. You're too stubborn about some things, so I won't try to persuade you. But Jinyao is your son after all. You're not at the point where you can't get along with him. It was the first time Lu Tongjia had been humiliated by old Master Hua like this. Hua Mingguang looked at his wife's face and wanted to say something, but stopped. The other two families had different expressions, but without exception, they all looked like they were watching a good show. Su Qingsang and Hua Jinyao didn't know any of this. Rong City was in the north and it was already very cold. The coldness here was different from the coldness in the south. As soon as Su Qingsang walked out of the door, she staggered because of the cold wind. Hua Jinyao helped her up with a smile on his face. What's wrong? Are you so scared that your legs are weak? Who's scared? Su Qingsang steadied herself and looked at her feet. See, there are steps. I didn't notice. Yes. Hua Jinyao reached out to hold her hand. I thought that you just calmed down and your legs went soft after you calmed down. You're the one who's weak. She was someone who dared to dissect a corpse. How could something like this make her legs weak? Hua Jinyao put his arm around her shoulder and said, Okay, my wife is beautiful and bold. I'm so lucky to marry you. Su Qingsang couldn't stand it anymore. Stop fooling around. Come on, I'll take you to play. Where do you want to go? Anywhere. I'm not familiar with this place. Rome City used to be quite prosperous. There's an ancient city here not far from here. I'll take you there. What do you think? You decide. Since it was his territory, they would naturally listen to him. Hu Jingyao took her to the car and they went to the famous ancient city of Rome City. The ancient city was built in the Ming dynasty. It had been preserved very well. Su Qingsang liked this kind of place. He felt that it was a little interesting. It wasn't small, but the two of them walked around for an entire afternoon. After they came out, Hu Jingyao said he would take her to dinner. Su Qingsang said that she wanted to eat the local specialties of Rong City. In fact, the food in Su Qingsang City was quite spicy, but the people here didn't eat spicy food. But it was good to eat it occasionally. After dinner it got dark. Su Qingsang thought that Hu Jingyao would take her home, but she didn't expect him to say that he had already made arrangements. She followed him and the two of them strolled around the night market. Although it wasn't as lively as the south, it still had a unique flavor. Seeing that it was almost 9 o'clock, Su Qingsang thought that they would be going home soon. However, Hu Jingyao brought her here again. He looked up at the signboard. It should be a clubhouse. Hu Jingyao led her into the door, upstairs and into the elevator. Someone led the way in front. Hu Jingyao squeezed her hand and said, "A few of my childhood friends knew that I was back and insisted on welcoming me. We had no choice but to go and entertain them." Chapter 217. Hu Jingyao seemed to know what she was worried about and patted her shoulder. "Yup, just a few childhood friends. They usually have a good relationship with me. They could be considered to have grown up together. If you really come to Rong City in the future, you'll have to ask these boys to help you with some things." "How can you say that about me?" Hearing that, Su Qingsang knew that they had a good relationship, so she relaxed a lot. "You're being too polite. You'll know when you see him." Hu Jingyao thought about that group of people and added, "These people know that I'm married. They made a scene a few times and asked me to bring you out." She didn't follow Hu Jingyao to Rong City several times before. Naturally, he couldn't bring her to meet anyone. Su Qingsang thought about the attitude of the Hu family and made all kinds of preparations. As they spoke, the two of them arrived at the entrance of the VIP room. Pushing open the door, they saw a row of U-shaped sofas in the spacious room. There were already a few people sitting inside. Seeing Hu Jingyao enter the door, someone whistled. Su Qingsang recognized one of the men immediately. Wasn't that person the mayor of Lin City? She had seen it on the local news. At that time he felt that the other party was really young. He didn't expect to see them in Rong City. A man who looked to be in his late 20s with a crew cut stood up. He was dressed in a military uniform and looked very proper. He threw a punch at Hu Jingyao. "Brat, you're finally willing to come out of your nest?" The other one was more delicate and looked about the same age as the first one. The man in the gray shirt stood up as well. "I don't think he's willing to come out. He's here to extort us." "Yes, I think so too." Finally, the person sitting in the private room said, "So, how about 3 drinks as punishment?" Punishment? He had to be punished. Junxing was so busy but he still had time to fly back to meet with us. "Just you, kid. What? Now that you're married you have a lot of face. Isn't it hard to see you?" "That's enough." Hu Jingyao punched the guy with the flat top and said, "Stop it. When I'm not at home you guys seem to be having more fun." The group laughed. All eyes fell on Su Qingsang who was standing next to Hu Jingyao. Hu Jingyao turned to look at Su Qingsang. "Come on, let me introduce you." He pointed at the man in the military uniform who was the most talkative. "This is Cheng Xianyun." The gray shirt was Cheng Wan Xianying. The last one to speak was Tang Mohan. It was Su Changlong who had been silent. Li Junxing didn't need to be introduced. Su Qingsang already knew him. After introducing everyone, Hu Jingyao put his arm around Su Qingsang's shoulder and brought her to the front. "This is my wife, Su Qingsang." "Hello, sister-in-law." Hu Jingyao smiled and said, "I'm older than all of them. It's only right for me to call you sister-in-law." "Nice to meet you," Su Qingsang greeted them graciously. Although Cheng Xianyun was wearing a military uniform, he was the most lively one. He looked Su Qingsang up and down then turned to Hu Jingyao. "Little sister-in-law is quite pretty, no wonder you don't." "Xianyun," Li Junxing called him from behind. Cheng Xianyun rubbed his nose. No wonder he had been hiding and did not bring little sister-in-law out. Hu Jingyao gave him a warning look, and Cheng Xianyun made a zipping gesture with his mouth. Chapter 218. The doubt disappeared after Hu Jingyao sat down with her. The group of people chatted casually. Su Qingsang found that except for Su Changlong, who didn't speak much, the others were very friendly. Li Junxing also surprised her a little. This kind of person who could only be seen on TV was actually Hua Jinyao's childhood friend? Hua Jinyao sat next to Li Junxing. Li Junxing raised his wine glass to Su Qingsang. Sister-in-law, this is the first time we've met. Give me one. Don't mess around. She can't drink. Hua Jinyao didn't want Su Qingsang to go back drunk. Are you protecting her? Li Junxing didn't force her, but the teasing in his eyes was very obvious. Hua Jinyao smiled. Yes, I'll protect my people. Do you have a problem with that? No. How can I have a problem with that? Jinyao, that's not right. How can you not drink when you're here? Cheng Xianyun jumped out again. He picked up the wine glass and was about to toast Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang smiled and refused. I really can't drink. If you can't drink, then sing. Cheng Xianyun pulled Su Qingsang up as he spoke and looked at Hua Jinyao. Brother Hua, I'll borrow sister-in-law for a while. You can do whatever you want. You brat. Hua Jinyao glared at him and turned to look at Su Qingsang. Ignore him. If you don't want it, just sit here. I'll see who dares. Wan Xianying, Cheng Xianyun and Tang Mohan all said something. Su Qingsang blushed and was a little embarrassed. Then let's sing one? Look, sister-in-law has agreed. Come, what do you want to sing? I'll order a song for you. I'll do it myself. Su Qingsang stood up and walked to the console to order a song. The group of people didn't pay attention to this side. Li Junxing approached Hua Jinyao and lowered his voice. Last time, your company didn't fight for the land in the east of the city. The plan has changed. Oh. Hua Jinyao calmly picked up the glass in front of him. What has changed? Originally it was to build villas there. Now there are documents saying that it is to build nursing homes and orphanages. I didn't want the land in the east of the city. Hua Jinyao raised his glass and gently clinked it with him. I've always wanted the land in the south of the city. Li Junxing smiled and clinked glasses with him. You're still so cunning, kid. I'll take that as a compliment. Hua Jinyao smiled brightly. I'm determined to win the auction next month. Don't worry. If there are no accidents, it should be yours. Li Junxing drank half of the cup and suddenly became serious. But you guys have earned the money and you have to do things. Although you won't fight for that piece of land, your company still needs to put in some effort for the nursing home and orphanage. Since you, Mayor Li, have spoken, I will naturally follow your orders. If my project does well, won't you be proud as well? Li Junxing smiled. Hua Jinyao knew that he had always been ambitious. The two of them clinked their glasses. Nothing needed to be said. When Su Qingsang sat down next to Hua Jinyao, she found that he seemed to be in a better mood. She looked at him suspiciously, not understanding what had happened in such a short time. Hua Jinyao couldn't explain it to her, so he just handed her a glass of juice. Su Qingsang had just taken it when the door of the private room was opened. There were 3 women standing at the door. The leader had a very delicate face and at the moment, her face was full of displeasure. Chapter 219. The second one who came in was a pretty girl. She put one hand on the shoulder of the woman in front of her and saw Hua Jinyao at first glance. Brother Jinyao is back. You guys didn't even tell us. Instead you came here to play. It's really too much. Exactly. The woman in the lead snorted and pulled the last woman in. Brother Jinyao, you're so heartless. You didn't invite your sisters to play with you when you came back. Hua Jinyao didn't speak. Su Qingsang blinked and looked at those people. The first one who came in was quite beautiful. She was Li Juanxing's sister, Li Wanyu. Behind her was Tang Mohan's sister, Tang Monlu. The last one to come in was Su Ruoli, Su Changlong's sister. Su Qingsang's eyes subconsciously fell on Su Ruoli. Li Wanyu was beautiful, Tang Monlu was beautiful, but Su Ruoli was out of this world. Her facial features were not gorgeous, but she had a kind of beauty, like an orchid in an empty valley. Inexplicably, Su Qingsang felt a vague sense of threat. She subconsciously glanced at Hua Jinyao. Hua Jinyao picked up the grapes on the coffee table and put them to her mouth. Here, have a grape. Su Qingsang subconsciously opened her mouth, but found that the 3 women were looking at her. Brother Jinyao. Li Wanyu went forward and sat next to Li Junxing. Who is this? My wife. Su Qingsang. Hua Jinyao told Su Qingsang the names of the rest of the people. Hello. Su Qingsang nodded slightly as a greeting. Li Wanyu and Tang Monlu looked at each other and Tang Monlu sat next to Hua Jinyao. Brother Jinyao, you got married in a low-key way. Didn't the whole Rong city hear about it? Tang Monlu said half-jokingly. Exactly, Brother Jinyao. You didn't find a random woman to fool us because you wanted to be forced to marry by Aunt Hua, did you? Wan Yu? Li Junxing glared at his sister with a bit of coldness in his eyes. Don't talk nonsense. Except for Li Junxing, the other men looked at each other and didn't say anything. Even Qing Xianyun, who had always been lively, sat motionless. How is this nonsense? Li Wanyu raised her eyebrows and glanced at Su Ruoli, who had come in but had not yet sat down. Everyone knows that Auntie Hua's favorite person is Li Wanyu. Li Juanxing's expression was already quite ugly. If you continue to talk nonsense, you can leave. Brother, what are you doing? Am I your little sister? Li Junxing was unmoved. Today is a gathering for us men. You girls go home first. I don't want to. Li Wanyu didn't want to. If it's a gathering for men, then why is she here? She directly pointed at Su Qingsang, and Su Qingsang was inexplicably implicated. How could she be the same as you? She's Jinyao's wife. Li Junxing knew what his sister was thinking. Judging from his protective attitude toward Su Qingsang, she could tell how important Su Qingsang was to him. As long as they weren't stupid, they wouldn't challenge Hua Jinyao's bottom line. But I'm still your sister. Li Wanyu glared at him. How can you be someone's brother like this? You don't protect me but only outsiders. When she said this, she glared at Su Qingsang with obvious provocation in her eyes. Su Qingsang was implicated again. She subconsciously glanced at Hua Jinyao. He picked up the fruit on the table and fed her another bite. Eat the fruit. Chapter 220. If Su Qingsang still couldn't tell that something was wrong, she would be really stupid. Once again she confirmed that a woman's intuition was indeed very accurate. She just felt that Su Ruoli was not ordinary. Su Ruoli had already walked to her brother Su Changlong and sat down. She didn't seem to hear what Li Wanyu and Tang Manlu said. Su Qingsang looked at Hua Jinyao again. Hua Jinyao acted as if he didn't see those women. He calmly fed her 2 more pieces of fruit. Seeing that she was looking at him, he took out a tissue and wiped his hands. Tired? If you are tired, we can go back first. Can I? Can I go first? Su Qingsang wasn't tired. She just didn't like Li Wanyu and Tang Manlu's attitude. However, she was more curious about the relationship between Su Ruoli and Hua Jinyao. Why did everyone else look at them as if they were having an affair? Brother Jinyao, what do you mean? Li Wanyu bit her lip. Her beautiful face was a bit aggrieved. We are here and you want to leave? Yes, Brother Jinyao. What's wrong? You don't like us now that you are married? Tang Manlu also said. She was obviously dissatisfied with Hua Jinyao's behavior. Wanyu. Manlu. Li Junxing and Tang Mohan obviously didn't like their sister being so immature. The 2 of them felt quite aggrieved and looked at Su Ruoli together. Su Ruoli felt their gazes and smiled faintly. Jinyao just came back today. I think he is tired. Anyway, he is back. There is still a long way to go. Don't force him to stay. Sister Ruoli. Li Wanyu looked at Su Ruoli. Su Ruoli didn't say that just now. Su Changlong was also looking at his sister. In fact, they were twins. Su Ruoli was only born 10 minutes earlier than him. In his heart, he knew about the engagement between the Su family and the Hua family. That was why he hadn't said anything since just now. He couldn't particularly accept that a woman from nowhere had become Hua Jinyao's wife and taken away his sister's position. All right. Don't we often go out to play? We can't stop playing when Jinyao is gone, right? Su Ruoli spoke again. The others didn't speak and only looked at Hua Jinyao. The atmosphere was a little strange. Su Qingsang pulled Hua Jinyao's hand and said, I'm not too tired. We can leave later. He had been staying in Lin City these days and hadn't come back. It was rare for him to come back. If he left just like that, it wouldn't be good. Her dislike of society did not mean that she was ignorant of the ways of the world. Then let's play a little longer. Hua Jinyao looked like he would do anything for Su Qingsang. Li Wanyu felt her teeth ache and Tang Manlu also felt uncomfortable. They went to see Su Ruoli together. Su Ruoli acted as if nothing had happened. She picked up a glass and poured herself a glass of wine. Hua Jinyao and Su Qingsang were sitting together, and Li Junxing was sitting next to Hua Jinyao. Later, Li Wanyu and Tang Manlu sat beside Li Junxing. On the other side of Hua Jinyao was Tang Manlu. Tang Manlu kept looking at Su Ruoli. After pouring the wine, she stood up and walked to Hua Jinyao. Tang Manlu took the opportunity to stand up and give her seat to Su Ruoli. Sister Ruoli, sit here. Su Ruoli sat down next to Hua Jinyao and raised the glass in her hand to Hua Jinyao. Jinyao, you didn't inform us of your marriage and I haven't congratulated you. I'm giving you a belated blessing. Hua Jinyao glanced at her and picked up the glass. Chapter 221. Su Ruoli looked at Su Qingsang. Her eyes were light and friendly. Su Qingsang looked at the glass in front of her and then at Hua Jinyao. Hua Jinyao smiled at her and then looked at Su Ruoli. His voice was a little colder. You called her the wrong way. Su Ruoli was stunned. Hua Jinyao added, you shouldn't call her sister-in-law. Su Qingsang didn't understand, but Su Ruoli's face turned pale. She held the glass and didn't react for nearly half a minute. The other people in the private room also looked over, especially Su Changlong. Hua Jinyao. Hua Jinyao, what are you talking about? That's the truth. Hua Jinyao's expression didn't change. He looked at Su Ruoli. He understood the meaning of that look and so did Su Ruoli. She's younger than you. You called her name. Su Ruoli's fingertips were pale. She looked down and didn't speak. No one knew what she was thinking. Su Qingsang felt that the atmosphere was a little strange. But she couldn't tell what was strange. She thought about it and wanted to pick up the glass in front of her. Hua Jinyao held her hand and gave her another glass of juice. Drink this. He was the only one who had seen her drunk. The protectiveness in his eyes was so obvious. Su Ruoli wasn't blind. Her face also turned a little pale. Jinyao, you, Su Changlong didn't look good either. Seeing his sister being looked down upon like this, he moved his legs and wanted to stand up. Wan Xianying held him down. He glanced at him and shook his head at him silently. Su Changlong sat back down. Tang Mohan didn't move. Li Wanyu and Tang Monlu didn't dare to speak. It doesn't matter what you drink. What matters is my thought. Su Ruoli barely regained her senses. She picked up the glass and gestured to Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang picked up the juice and nodded to Ji Dongli. Su Ruoli and Hua Jinyao clinked glasses. He gently touched the glass and quickly withdrew his hand. He casually took a sip and put it down. His attitude made Su Ruoli's face turn even paler. Su Qingsang held the juice glass in her hand and felt a little strange. Come. What are you standing there for? Cheng Xianyun looked at the atmosphere in the room and stood up first. Come out to play. Let's have a good time. Sister-in-law, come on, let's sing. You just said you don't want to drink, but you still have to sing this song. Su Qingsang put down her glass and smiled shyly. I'm not good at singing. Sorry for that. Sister-in-law, what are you saying? It's not like I want to be a singer. Cheng Xianyun smiled and handed the microphone to Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang glanced at the screen. The number of times she came out to play could be counted on one hand. The songs he could sing were also very few. However, when he was in school, one of his roommates especially liked Fei Wang. It was played every day, so she only knew a few songs. I haven't properly felt the gentleness of the snowflakes dancing. Su Qingsang's voice was not clear. It was just that her voice was a little low. Singing such a song was surprisingly pleasant. Hua Jinyao looked at her and felt that he had never seen Su Qingsang like this. He couldn't help but reach out to hold her hand. Su Qingsang was just about to sing, sometimes I'd rather not let go. Feeling the warmth of his hand, she turned her face and smiled at him. Hua Jinyao squeezed her palm and praised her for singing with his eyes. Chapter 222. The two of them stared at each other unscrupulously. As long as the other people in the room had eyes, they could see that the two of them were deeply in love. Su Qingsang blushed and felt a little hot. However, there was a trace of joy and happiness in her heart. Su Ruoli's face became paler and paler like a piece of paper. She could fall down at any time. After the song, Hua Jinyao applauded. The other people in the room couldn't refuse. Su Ruoli sat still. Tang Monlu stood up and said, Sister Ruoli's voice is also very good. Sister Ruoli, you sing too. Sing, my heart will go on. While speaking, she gave Su Qingsang a provocative look, but found that Su Qingsang wasn't looking at her at all. She was just staring at Hua Jinyao. Su Ruoli bit her lip and gently shook her head. I won't sing, okay? What was the point of singing well? Hua Jinyao didn't appreciate it. Tang Monlu insisted on ordering 2 difficult songs for Su Ruoli. Then she took the initiative to put the microphone in Su Ruoli's hand. Su Ruoli's voice sounded soft and delicate, but it was really good when she sang. Su Qingsang couldn't help but look at her again. She found that she was singing My Heart Will Go On, but she was looking at Hua Jinyao. She pursed her lips and gently touched Hua Jinyao. Then she looked at him with a bit of a teasing look in her eyes. She didn't know that Hua Jinyao was concentrating on peeling grapes for her. Come on. Eat more fruit. It's much drier here than in Lin City. Su Qingsang didn't know what to say. She opened her mouth to eat the grapes that Hu Jinyao handed to her. She was passively showing off her love. Everyone else in the room saw this and understood what was going on. After Su Ruoli finished, there was also applause in the room. But compared with Su Qingsang, the applause was a little different. Su Ruoli's expression didn't change, but Tang Monlu began to feel wronged for her. She wanted to stand up for her but was stopped by Tang Mohan. Brother. Tang Monlu was unhappy. Tang Mohan coldly stared at her. She immediately shrank her neck and didn't dare to speak. The people in the room grew up together and had a similar relationship. Tang Monlu regarded Hu Jinyao as her brother, so she wasn't unhappy. But she didn't expect that he would be with someone outside of their circle. In her opinion, Su Ruoli and Hu Jinyao were a better match. No matter what, they had grown up together. Not to mention, Sister Ruoli's family background was good and she was talented. Because of this strange atmosphere, the gathering seemed a little awkward. However, Hu Jinyao didn't care. In the eyes of others, he was serving Su Qingsang wholeheartedly. What she didn't know was that in the eyes of others, this scene was even more unsightly, and they disliked Su Qingsang even more. In the past, Hu Jinyao had been nice to Tang Monlu and Li Wanyu, but that was only for the sake of their families and their elder brothers. But looking at how he treated Su Qingsang, the difference was obvious. Everyone present had different thoughts, but it was a joyous and harmonious scene. After the party, Su Qingsang was really tired. By the time the car stopped in front of the Hu mansion, she had already fallen asleep. Hu Jinyao looked at her sleeping face and wanted to wake her up. But looking at her sleeping face, he didn't want to wake her up, so he went around to the other side and gently carried her inside. It was late at night in the mansion, and Su Qingsang was very light. She was really tired today. She didn't wake up, but found a relatively comfortable position in Hu Jinyao's arms and fell asleep again. Chapter 223. Hu Mingguang was the chairman of Tianyu Group. A few years ago, old Master Hu forcefully gave the position of CEO to Hu Jinyao. Lu Tongjiao was the daughter of the Lu family. Her family also had a business. Ever since she married Hu Mingguang, she had been in charge of several foundations and had been elected as the president of the Women's Chamber of Commerce. In fact, she was also very busy every day and she was not much more relaxed than Hu Mingguang. At this time she should have gone to bed. It was only when he heard the sound of a car that he stopped to take a look. She didn't expect to see such a scene. Her good son, who didn't have much of a good face in front of his own family, was carrying the woman she didn't approve of into the house. Looking at her son's careful and protective expression, she really didn't know that her son was a sentimental person. Lu Tongjia didn't know what to feel, but she didn't like it. "Mom," Hu Jinyao greeted her when he saw her. He turned around and carried Su Qingsang upstairs. Su Qingsang moved a little when she heard the voice. Hu Jinyao hugged her tightly and unconsciously lightened his footsteps. The look on Lu Tongjia's face grew darker and darker. Watching her son's figure disappear behind the stairs, her gaze became determined. Su Qingsang had a good sleep. Although she was going to a new place, Hu Jinyao was by her side. She had gotten used to falling asleep in Hu Jinyao's arms, so she didn't feel uncomfortable. She got up early in the morning and found that Hu Jinyao was not in the room. She looked down from the window. He didn't notice it yesterday, but the backyard was even bigger than the front yard. She immediately noticed that old Master Hua was practicing boxing on the spacious lawn in the backyard. On the other side of the lawn was a swimming pool, and Hu Jinyao was swimming in it. She knew he had the habit of exercising every morning, but this was the first time she had seen him swim. The temperature outside wasn't high. Wasn't he cold? She quickly changed her clothes and followed him downstairs. The old man was over 80 years old and was in good health. It was because she paid attention to maintaining her health. The old man liked to do Tai Chi. He pushed back and forth, and his moves looked quite standard. Turning around, old Master Hua found that Su Qingsang had also come down. He smiled at her and retracted his fist. "Qingsang, you're awake? Why don't you sleep a little longer?" Su Qingsang smiled. It didn't feel good to sleep here for too long. She changed the topic. "Grandpa's boxing is very good. Do you want to learn? If you want to learn, I can teach you." "That's good." Su Qingsang stuck out her tongue, feeling a little embarrassed. "It's just that I don't have a stable mind. I'm afraid I can't hold on." There were a lot of things to do in the hospital and she was only free for a few days. He was afraid that he would still be busy when he returned to Lin City. "I'm fine. When you have time, you should learn a few moves to strengthen your body." What old Master Hua said was true. He was really going to teach Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang glanced at Hu Jinyao, who was still swimming happily in the water. She could only bite the bullet and learn. After learning a few moves, he became interested. His punches and kicks weren't as good as old Master Hua's, but it was still acceptable. Not bad, not bad. He had talent. For the next few days you will wake up early and practice with me. Sure. Su Qingsang was a little sweaty after a round of punching, but she felt refreshed. Let's go. Time for breakfast. Old Master Hua asked Su Qingsang to come in with him. Hua Jinyao had also finished swimming and was coming out of the water. Although it was cold in Rong City these few days, the weather was good. The morning sun shone on Hua Jinyao's body, and his strong figure was clearly visible. Su Qingsang couldn't help but take a few more glances. She turned around and found old Master Hua's teasing gaze. Chapter 224. Old Master Hua smiled and patted her hand. You look at him every day. It seems that you are very satisfied with Jinyao. Grandpa. Su Qingsang blushed and felt extremely embarrassed. Old Master Hua stopped teasing her and led her into the house. Lu Tongjia had already gotten up. She glanced at Su Qingsang with an indifferent expression. Good morning, Auntie. She was Hua Jinyao's mother, but she didn't want her to call her Mom. Lu Tongjia didn't look at her. She walked past her and went straight to the dining room. Girl. Old Master Hua sighed. Don't take it to heart. Grandpa, don't worry. I won't. Su Qingsang didn't have much experience with old people, but she really liked old Master Hua. Hua Jinyao came after taking a shower and changing his clothes. He still sat next to Su Qingsang. The others didn't usually live here, so only the few of them had breakfast. Hua Minghuang also got up early. He glanced at Hua Jinyao when he was about to go out after breakfast. Since you're back, you have to deal with business. Don't just care about love and... He swallowed the unpleasant words when he met old Master Hua's warning gaze. Hua Jinyao did have a lot of business to deal with today. Other than the one he had left behind, he was still in Lin City. He looked at Su Qingsang and felt a little conflicted. He was supposed to take her out to play. It's okay. Go to work. I'll stay with Grandpa. Su Qingsang was quite considerate. Hua Jinyao looked at her and felt that this woman was becoming more and more like him. Ignoring the fact that there were other people around, he kissed her on the cheek and said, Okay. I'll go to work. You stay at home with Grandpa. I'll come back to eat with you tonight. Okay. Su Qingsang nodded and Hua Jinyao went to work. After breakfast, old Master Hua took Su Qingsang to his study. It was the first time Su Qingsang entered old Master Hua's study. She looked straight ahead and entered the door, then stood on the side like a primary school student. You don't have to be so nervous. Come here. Thank you, Grandpa. Su Qingsang relaxed a little. Old Master Hua sat down behind the desk. Su Qingsang glanced at the room and saw a few paintings hanging on the wall. They seemed to be authentic works, but she didn't know much about them. Old Master Hua bent down and took out a box from the bottom drawer. He opened it and handed it to Su Qingsang. This was left behind by Jinyao's grandmother. He had promised that he would give it to the eldest granddaughter-in-law. Now that he's married, it's naturally yours. Su Qingsang glanced at the box. It was an antique jade bracelet that seemed to be of good quality. Grandpa, this is too expensive. I can't take it. Keep it. I've said it before, things are dead but people are alive. Old Master Hua seemed to think of something and was a little sad. When his grandmother was alive, she loved him the most. At the mention of his wife, old Master Hua paused. The look in his eyes became more and more reluctant. You're married to Jinyao now. This is yours. Grandpa. Su Qingsang looked at the box and didn't dare to take it with her hands. I'm a doctor. I can't wear this. It's okay. Keep it. Old Master Hua waved his hand. Do you know how to play chess? Do you want to play a game with me? No. Su Qingsang was a little embarrassed. At best, she only knew the rules. It's okay. Let's go downstairs. Old Master Hua didn't say anything else since he had given her what he wanted to give. He took Su Qingsang downstairs. Su Qingsang followed behind him, still holding the box in her hand. She was still thinking about telling Jinyao about it when he came back. Suddenly, she saw a person sitting in the living room who shouldn't be there. Chapter 225. Su Qingsang stood still at the top of the stairs. Old Master Hua also saw Su Ruoli, who had already stood up. Grandpa Hua. The girl from the Su family is here? Old Master Hua waved his hand and gestured for her to sit down. Sit down. Don't be so polite. Thank you, Grandpa Hua. Old Master Hua sat down on the sofa. When he saw Su Qingsang sitting there motionlessly, he reached out to her. Qingsang, come and sit down. Su Qingsang touched her nose and finally walked to sit next to old Master Hua. She had forgotten to put the box away, so she was still holding it in her hand. Lu Tongjia saw the box and couldn't help but look at old Master Hua. That. Lu Tongjia met old Master Hua's eyes. Her voice was very soft, with a bit of unhappiness and unwillingness. That bracelet should be mother's, right? Old Master Hua nodded. Yes, it was left by your mother. Why is it in her hand? Su Qingsang was a little confused when she realized that the topic had shifted to her. Was there anything special about the bracelet on her wrist? Jinyao married her. Who else could it be given to if not her? But Lu Tongjia's face was quite ugly. How can he give it to her? How is she worthy of it? Every word she said was very soft, but there was a strong sense of dissatisfaction in it. I don't see why she is not worthy. Old Master Hua looked protective. She is Jinyao's wife now. Why is she not worthy? This is for the eldest granddaughter-in-law. Back then Lu Tongjia paused and looked at old Master Hua again. Anyway, she is not worthy. Su Qingsang was a little embarrassed. The box in her hand became a little hot. She didn't know whether she should take it or not. Su Ruoli just sat there and didn't say a word. Tongjia, I know what you are thinking. You just don't think she is worthy of Jinyao. But now they are married. And I think she is worthy. Very worthy. Dad. Lu Tongjia's face was really ugly now. There are guests here. What are you talking about? Nothing. The girl from the Su family is also here, so I can show my attitude. Su Ruoli, you are very good, very good. However, your fate with the Hua family is still a little lacking. I believe you are a good boy. I also believe that you will have a bright future. So, let's forget about our previous agreement. Su Ruoli didn't expect old Master Hua to be so direct. Her face was pale and she almost couldn't sit still. Grandpa Hua, I'm old and I don't have many years left to live. I don't care about life and death anymore. I only wish for you juniors to be happy. It's the same for everyone. Su Qingsang couldn't help but give old Master Hua a look of admiration. Humans. Living with a clear mind was also a skill. However, there were many people who lived their lives in obscurity. There were very few people like old Master Hua who were as open-minded as him. Grandpa Hua. Su Ruoli finally found her voice. What are you talking about? I'm here today to visit Auntie. After all, I haven't seen Auntie Hua for a long time. Auntie Hua always takes care of me. Yes. I know you are a good boy. I haven't seen you for a long time. You can leave after dinner. Thank you, Grandpa Hua. Chapter 226. At noon, Hua Jinyao came back. It was a long way from the company. She didn't expect him to come back for dinner. Seeing the teasing look in old Master Hua's eyes, Su Qingsang almost couldn't sit still. Su Ruoli's eyes lit up when she saw Hua Jinyao, but they soon dimmed down. Lu Tongjia was upset after being scolded by old Master Hua, so she didn't say anything. Old Master Hua was very happy that his grandson came back to eat with him. When the dishes were served, she asked Hua Jinyao to sit next to her. As soon as Hua Jinyao sat down, they began to show off their affection again. It wasn't as exaggerated as yesterday, but from time to time he would pick up some food and ladle some soup for Su Qingsang. Lu Tongjia had seen it the day before. Today she only felt a headache. She didn't have any other expression on her face. It was the first time that Su Ruoli had seen Hua Jinyao like this. She was surprised and refreshed. She didn't expect Hua Jinyao to have such a side to him. In her memory, Hua Jinyao was quite casual in front of his childhood friends, but he was very serious outside. Other than in front of old Master Hua, he had never shown this side of him, not even in front of his parents. Was this man really Hua Jinyao? Su Ruoli looked at the couple in front of her and felt suffocated. He couldn't taste the food at all. Old Master Hua talked to Hua Jinyao from time to time. He knew what the other two were thinking, but he didn't have time to care. Lu Tongjia didn't have much of an appetite. She took a few bites and went upstairs. When she left, she looked at Su Ruoli apologetically but did not say anything. Old Master Hua needed to take a nap after lunch. Before going upstairs, he glanced at Hua Jinyao and said, Jinyao, you can send the girl from the Su family home later. All right, Grandpa. Hua Jinyao stood there motionlessly, his expression calm. Su Qingsang smiled at him and gestured for him to see the guest out. She wasn't jealous? Hua Jinyao narrowed his eyes. He was obviously dissatisfied, but he still went to see Su Ruoli off. How could Su Ruoli not see the look between the two of them? Feeling a little suffocated, she smiled and said to Hua Jinyao, Jinyao, thank you. Not at all. Hua Jinyao and Su Ruoli got in the car. In fact, the Su family was not far from the Ho family. After getting in the car, Su Ruoli fastened her seatbelt and kept her eyes on Ho Jinyao. Jinyao, there were a lot of people yesterday. There were some things that were not convenient to say. Su Ruoli seemed to hesitate. Thinking of what had just happened, she still felt that it was a bit glaring. Are you serious? We've already gotten our marriage certificate. Do you think I'm serious? Ho Jinyao started the car with an unruly smile on his face. Su Ruoli felt bitter. Is that so? Why her? It's fate. Su Ruoli didn't believe it. Ho Jinyao was not a person who believed in fate. But, if not for her, then the two of us, could we? She hesitated, but she didn't know that Ho Jinyao was much more determined than she thought. There are no ifs. Ruoli, you know very well that it's impossible for us to be together. Jinyao, Su Ruoli thought for a moment and said, do you care about the engagement between the Su family and the Ho family? You don't want to be restrained, you don't want. Chapter 227. Ho Jinyao's rejection was straightforward and merciless. Su Ruoli's face was pale. Looking at the road ahead, she felt that no matter how bright the sun was, she could not feel the slightest warmth. Actually, sometimes I also think that it would be good if we didn't have that engagement back then. Su Ruoli looked forward and said, if there is no engagement then, I don't have that engagement anymore. Ho Jinyao stopped the car in front of the Su family's house. Ruoli, I'm married. The engagement between the Su family and the Ho family was no longer valid. In fact, you know very well that the engagement is no longer valid. Yes. Su Ruoli nodded in her heart. It's a long time ago. She knew that it didn't count anymore, but she still couldn't let it go. To put it bluntly, she was just stupid. Unfastening her seatbelt, Su Ruoli hoped that she would lose gracefully. He looked at Ho Jinyao again with a complicated look in his eyes. Thank you, Jinyao. After getting out of the car, Su Ruoli walked slowly inside. After taking a few steps, he turned back and stood in front of the car again. Jinyao. There are some things that I haven't let go of, and I know you haven't either. But if I can let it go, I think you can try to let it go too. Ho Jinyao didn't speak. His lips were pressed into a straight line. He was in a completely different state from before. Su Ruoli bit her lip. She knew she had said something wrong, but she couldn't take it back. Jinyao, no matter what, I still wish you the best. I hope you can live a happy life. She said this very sincerely, but Ho Jinyao didn't look at her. Thank you, I will. His voice was a little cold. Before Su Ruoli could move, he had already started the car and left. Halfway to the office, Ho Yao suddenly made a turn and went back to the Ho residence. Su Qingsang was sitting on the sofa, having a video chat with Shi Mengwan. After lunch, everyone went to take a nap. The servants usually didn't hang around the main residence. Su Qingsang was alone on the first floor. She was texting Shi Mengwan about what she had seen and heard in the past 2 days. Seeing Ho Jinyao come in, she was stunned for a moment. She hurriedly hung up the video call and watched Ho Jinyao approach her. Don't you need to go to work? Yes. Ho Jinyao sat down beside her. I have a meeting in the afternoon. I still have to meet a client tonight. Then why are you? I came to see you. By the way, I'll explain it to you. I'm afraid you'll be jealous. What do I have to be jealous of? Su Qingsang didn't feel well yesterday. However, she had seen Ho Jinyao's performance in the past 2 days. Since Ho Jinyao didn't care about Su Ruoli at all, why should she be jealous of her? Honey. Ho Jinyao was not happy to hear that at all. What you said really hurts me. Don't tell me you're not unhappy at all? Why should I be unhappy? Someone is coveting your husband. Ho Jinyao pulled Ye's body over and let her lean into his arms. Why aren't you worried? If she covets you, will you leave with her? Of course not. If she likes you, you'll abandon me to be with her? How is this possible? If that's the case, why should I be jealous? Why should I be anxious? Su Qingsang said matter-of-factly. However, Ho Jinyao couldn't bring himself to laugh. Chapter 228. Of course. Su Qingsang nodded, and the expression on her face was quite contented. Not all women are as easy to talk to as me. Ho Jinyao stared at Su Qingsang's face for a while. Instead of saying that she was easy to talk to and tolerant, it would be more appropriate to say that she didn't care about him, right? Are you really not curious? Yes, but only a little. If he wanted to say it, he could say it. If he didn't want to say it, she didn't mind. Therefore, Su Qingsang shook her head quite frankly. I'm not curious. The corners of Ho Jinyao's mouth twitched. He stared at Su Qingsang's face for a while and said, "Should I thank my wife for her generosity now? Isn't it?" Hu Jingyao took a deep look at Su Qingsang, his face pale. He stood up and said, "I'm going to work." Go. Su Qingsang wanted to continue chatting with Shi Mengwan. Seeing that she didn't even try to persuade him to stay, Hu Jingyao felt a toothache. He took a few steps forward and suddenly stood in front of Su Qingsang again. Su Qingsang had just swiped the screen with her fingertips. She was surprised to see Hu Jingyao like that. "What happened? Do you want to accompany me to work?" "Accompany him to work?" Su Qingsang was confused. "Why would I go to your workplace? No matter what, you are the future lady boss of the company. Of course you want to go to the company with me? Otherwise, the next time you come to the company to look for me, they won't recognize you. Right?" It didn't matter. If she wasn't jealous or didn't care, it only meant that her taste wasn't good. Or perhaps they didn't understand how good his market was. He should bring her to the company and let her have a good look. In a place that she couldn't see, her husband had a lot of people thinking about him. However, Su Qingsang had no such thoughts. "Why would I go to your company to look for you? I won't go. Just treat it as accompanying me." Hu Jingyao sat down beside her. "Think about it. I still have work to do and you'll be bored staying at home alone. Why don't you accompany me to work?" What he said was right, but wouldn't that be bad? How could that be? "Let's go." Seeing the anticipation on his face, Su Qingsang stood up and said, "Okay, I'll go upstairs and change." "No need to change, let's go." "But, don't worry, my wife is beautiful no matter how you look at her. I guarantee it won't be wrong." Hu Jingyao was quite famous in the company because of his family background and good looks. There was no need to say anything more. Not to mention within the Tianyu group, even in the entire Rong city, there weren't many people who could compare to him. Then there was Hu Jingyao's means. As soon as he graduated from university, he took over the position of president of Tianyu Group. Back then, Hu Mingguang was still very young, and many people in the company were quite unconvinced. However, with old Master Hu's support, Hu Jingyao shouldered the burden. Not only that, but Hu Jingyao's achievements over the years were obvious to all. Tianyu Group's business was already very big. Hu Jingyao had been leading Tianyu all these years and had rarely failed. Even if there were occasional twists and turns, he would be able to turn the situation around in the end and bring more benefits to the group. Everyone in Rong City said that Hu Jingyao was a business genius and a promising young man. Who in Rong City didn't know that such a fierce and domineering CEO was actually indifferent to women? Chapter 229. Yang Wenshang was the first one among them to know that Hu Jingyao was married. However, when he suddenly saw the boss and the lady boss coming over, he was also shocked. President Hua. From the moment Su Qingsang entered the gate of Tianyu Company, the people who greeted her all the way looked as if they had seen a ghost. She didn't know the employees, but now even Yang Wenshang was like this? She couldn't help but look at Hu Jingyao. Could it be that this person was too fierce or too harsh in the company so he was disliked by others? After Hu Jingyao finished talking to Yang Wenshang, he turned around and found Su Qingsang in a daze. "What's wrong?" "Nothing." Su Qingsang turned to look at him. "Hu Jingyao, are you very, what? Are they fierce?" Su Qingsang still asked, "If they're not fierce, why do they all look like they've seen a ghost? What are you thinking about?" Hu Jingyao flicked her forehead. "Why are you so fierce if I'm not doing anything?" "How would I know? Shouldn't he ask himself?" "It's the first time they've seen me bring a woman to the company." Hu Jingyao squeezed her hand. "They won't be surprised if you come a few more times." "Why would I come to your company so often?" Su Qingsang touched her forehead. She didn't use much force, but it still hurt a little. "To keep me company." "You're not a child. How could a grown man need company?" That was enough. "You can also treat me like a child." "I don't mind." Hu Jingyao said it very seriously. Su Qingsang was so shocked that she almost choked. "You, a child?" It was the first time she had seen such a big child. Just as she was about to make a few jokes, she suddenly thought of something. She immediately stood up and looked at Hu Jingyao with a vigilant face. "You're not going back to Lin City this time, are you? What's wrong? Just tell me yes or no." Her eyes were a little nervous. Hu Jingyao couldn't help but tease her when he saw her like this. "Yes. There are a lot of things to do in the company recently. I don't think it'll be that fast. Didn't you see Qing Xianyan yesterday? His family runs a hospital. Wouldn't it be good to ask him to arrange a hospital for you?" "I don't want to." Su Qingsang rejected him without hesitation. She looked upset. "I'm not going to resign. You promised me. He said he just came to Rome City for a few days. Even if he really wanted to come, he should let her settle the matter first, right? As for the resignation as well as the work at hand. She originally wanted to get a master's degree in medicine from the medical university in Lin City. If she came to Rome City, she would definitely have to reapply for a new school. She also had more things to prepare for. Su Qingsang needed him to give her some time to deal with these things. If I didn't say that, would you have come back with me? Hua Jinyao took her hand and joked even more. Now that you're back, I have the final say. It won't be that easy for you to leave. He said half jokingly, half seriously. Why are you like this? Su Qingsang stood up abruptly. She couldn't help but look anxious. How can you do this? How could you lie to me? How did I lie to you? Hua Jinyao didn't expect to be so angry. For a moment he forgot that he was joking. Why didn't you lie to me? After Su Qingsang came, things happened one after another. Chapter 230. She was being too serious. Hua Jinyao looked at her and didn't understand why she was so angry. Honey, what's wrong? Su Qingsang wanted to lose her temper, but she didn't know what to say when she met Hua Jinyao's gaze. He had a point. He was from Rong City. He had been with her in Lin City for so long. He looked at the Hua family and then at her small apartment. He must have felt wronged a long time ago. She understood, but she still felt a little depressed. Honey? Hua Jinyao realized that something was wrong. Are you angry? Don't be angry. If you don't want to stay, we'll continue to go back to Lin City. You can stay wherever you want, okay? Hua Jinyao. That wasn't the point at all. She was actually a little anxious. A little? Su Qingsang looked at him with a rare look of helplessness in her eyes. I want to go back to Lin City. Then let's go back. Wait for me to deal with the things at hand, then. I want to go back by myself. Su Qingsang looked at him. Hua Jinyao, I want to go back by myself. Honey? Don't worry, I'm fine. I'm not angry. I just want to go back to Lin City. Then wait for me. I'll go back with you. No. That wasn't the point at all. Hua Jinyao, if you have things to do, you can do them. I'm a grown-up. I can take care of myself. Honey? President Hua. Someone knocked on the office door. His secretary in Rong City poked her head in and said, the people from Zhongqing Company have arrived. They're in the reception room. Okay, I'll go right away. Hua Jinyao looked at Su Qingsang and squeezed her hand again. Okay, I have something to do here. Stay here for a while and rest for a while. Wait for me to come back. Su Qingsang didn't say anything. Hua Jinyao kissed her on the cheek. Be good and wait for me to come back. He picked up 2 documents and hurried out. Su Qingsang was the only one left in the office. Soon 2 young women came in. They seemed to be Hua Jinyao's secretaries. They brought in some drinks, snacks. The other one was holding a tablet and a laptop. Both of their attitudes were quite proper, and their expressions were also very respectful. They said that this was Hua Jinyao's order, so they put down the things and left. Su Qingsang looked at the pile of things in front of her. Not only did the annoyance in her heart not disappear, it even increased. Before coming to Rong City, she had thought that Hua Jinyao was just a good-looking man without a bright future. She had thought that he was just an ordinary employee with some ability and a bright future. He had never even mentioned his parents. She had once thought that his parents might have passed away or something. She was an illegitimate daughter, and his family was ordinary. She felt that this was very good, very equal. However, when she came to Rong City, she found out that Hua Jinyao had such a powerful family background and such an identity. It was true that old Master Hua loved her. However, Lu Tongjia, Hua Jinyao's childhood friends, and Su Ruoli, who used to be engaged to him, there were so many pairs of eyes around him, so many people, and they all seemed to be conveying the same message. She didn't deserve Hua Jinyao. Actually, she didn't need anyone to remind her of this. She knew this better than anyone else. When she saw the Hua family, she entered the Hua family. When she saw the environment that Hua Jinyao usually lived in, she was stunned. Chapter 231. She seemed to be more and more aware of the distance and gap between her and Hua Jinyao. Frankly speaking, she was not a person who easily felt inferior. In the past, she had never felt that she was unworthy of Hua Jinyao. Although she was indeed an illegitimate daughter who didn't even know who her mother was. In the past, she had never thought of marrying into a rich family. Finding a man with a similar family background and spending the rest of her life with him didn't matter whether she was worthy or not. However, she didn't expect that the man she randomly married would have such an identity. Looking at the pile of things in front of her, Su Qingsang couldn't sit still. She stood up and went outside. No one dared to stop her, so she went straight outside. Lin City, Su Mansion. Su Peijian hung up the phone, her expression still very ugly. After thinking about it, she felt unwilling and made a few more calls. After hanging up, she sat on the sofa and sulked. Coincidentally, Li Qinxue came down from upstairs. Seeing Su Peijian like this, she didn't rush to go out but walked to her and sat down. What's wrong? Who made you angry? Who else? In the whole of Lin City, who would be so blind to make her angry? Still thinking about Yanba? Mom? How could Su Peijian not think about him? They had been engaged for so many years, but in the end, the engagement was broken off just like that. What kind of person did Qiu Yanba think she was? You were on the phone just now? Yes. Speaking of this, Su Peijian was even angrier. Mom, do you know? I heard later that Qiu Yanba has another person he likes. Really? Li Qinxue sat up straight. How did you know? It's because of Su Qingsang. She said it. Hearing Su Qingsang's name, Li Qinxue began to feel uncomfortable. Why is it related to her again? What's going on? Su Peijian told the story and then talked about what she had done in the past few days. Su Qingsang wouldn't say something like that for no reason. She must know something. But I asked someone to investigate. Yanba has been living a very disciplined life recently. I haven't seen him particularly close to any woman. Are you sure? Yes. The person Su Peijian hired was famous in the industry. Mom, do you think Su Qingsang didn't know and said that on purpose? It's possible. Li Qinxue was actually thinking of something else. If you have investigated and found that Qiu Yanba doesn't have a woman, or that he is closer to another woman, then is it possible that that woman is Su Qingsang? Su Peijian's eyes widened. Mom, what did you say? I say, is it possible that the woman is Su Qingsang herself? Li Qinxue was an experienced person, so there was nothing she didn't understand. Otherwise, how could Su Qingsang know about something that no one else knows or even can't find out? Now that he thought about it, it seemed to be the case. Su Peijian's expression was extremely ugly. How is that possible? Who was Su Qingsang? She was just an illegitimate daughter. Not to mention that she was already married. How could Yanbo like her? Impossible. Don't worry. Maybe it's just my guess. Li Qinxue patted her daughter's hand and said, You don't be too anxious. I think the fox will show its tail sooner or later. Don't you agree? Chapter 232. You're always so impatient. Although Li Qinxue said that, there was not a trace of anger on her face. He looked at his daughter's hands. Each of them was smooth, tender, and well-maintained. This was the daughter she had raised in a pampered manner. She couldn't bear to see her suffer any grievances. Yes or no, there's no conclusion yet. There's no point in being so anxious. When the truth comes out and it's proven that it's her, we'll think of a way. Think of what? Silly daughter. Li Qinxue patted Su Peijian on the shoulder and said, Sometimes, you don't have to do it yourself to deal with someone. It's not worth dirtying your hands. Mom. Su Peijian immediately understood what Li Qinxue meant. She nodded heavily and said, Thank you, Mom. I understand. The mother and daughter looked at each other and smiled. Li Qinxue seemed to be comforting her daughter, but in her heart she began to have doubts. Her daughter was too young after all. Perhaps she should use the power of the Li family to find out if Su Qingsang had anything to do with Qiu Yanba breaking off the engagement. Su Qingsang, who was far away in Rong City, naturally didn't know that she had been suspected and targeted. Even if she knew, she couldn't care less. After all, she had just had a disagreement with Hua Jinyao that wasn't really an argument. Outside the office it was very spacious. The assistant's office and secretary's office were very busy. Further ahead was the vice president's office, which was currently closed. Su Qingsang wasn't interested and she didn't want to go in and take a look. Going straight ahead, there wasn't a pantry in front, but a washroom. Su Qingsang went into the bathroom and chose a cubicle. Just as he was about to come out, he heard footsteps. Fortunately, he paused in his action of opening the door. The footsteps drew nearer and nearer and soon they were in. It sounded like the footsteps of 2 or 3 people. Emily, did you see the woman in the CEO's office today? No, I only saw his back. What's wrong? I heard it's Mrs. Hua. How is this possible? I didn't hear anything about President Hua getting married. I don't think so either. But I heard Assistant Yang call her that. Did you see Vivian bringing tea and drinks in just now? I saw them. They prepared a bunch of things. There were even snacks. Tiske, the president really dotes on Mrs. Hua. I wonder which family Mrs. Hua is from. After all, ordinary people aren't good enough for our President Hua. That's right. Mrs. Hua must be from a wealthy family. If it's not the Tang family, then it's the Su family or the Qing family. Accompanied by the sound of flushing water, the chatter slowly died down. Then the footsteps went far away and could no longer be heard. Su Qingsang leaned against the partition. She stared at an unknown spot and fell into deep thought. See, everyone thought that Hua Jinyao wasn't good enough for ordinary people. Now that she, an ordinary person, was already mated, what should she do? She found that she really hated this feeling. She touched the phone in her pocket and the wallet on the other side, then walked out of the bathroom and headed straight out. Su Qingsang didn't realize that she was unfamiliar with Rong City until she walked out of the Tianyu Group's building. However, after coming out, he realized that he had no sense of direction at all. Chapter 233. She rubbed her arms with both hands and turned her head back. She could go back like this, but she didn't want to. She took out her phone and found the nearest shopping mall. Su Qingsang went straight there. After walking for a few minutes, the shopping mall was right in front of her. Before Su Qingsang entered, she saw a person running out of the mall. That person ran very fast and soon, another person followed behind him. The person behind him was a woman. At this time, she was chasing the man in front of her with some difficulty. Catch the thief. The woman was wearing high heels and her footsteps were very slow. She could only keep shouting, "That's a thief. Catch him." Su Qingsang was stunned for a moment. She watched the thief run in her direction, and he was getting closer and closer. Catch the thief. The woman behind her was still shouting. Su Qingsang didn't move at first, but when she saw that the thief was about to run in front of her, she stretched out her foot without thinking. The thief obviously didn't expect Su Qingsang to do this, and he was about to run over. Unexpectedly, he was tripped by Su Qingsang's foot, staggered twice and fell forward. The thief fell to the ground, and the wallet he had been holding in his hand also flew out at this time. Su Qingsang quickly stepped forward and stepped on his back. The thief was anxious and was eager to get up. How could Su Qingsang give him a chance? She exerted force again. She was wearing a pair of leather boots today. This step was very solid. The thief struggled again. The woman who had been chasing behind him had already run over. She picked up the wallet on the ground, panting. After casually checking it, she seemed to be relieved when she found that it was her own wallet. She was about to thank Su Qingsang. On the other side, an equally enthusiastic crowd had already come over and subdued the thief. A group of people was going to send the thief to the police station, and there happened to be one nearby. Su Qingsang went with them as a witness. The woman thanked Su Qingsang and the police thanked her again. She was a little embarrassed. She had learned a few self-defense skills before, but they were all showy and useless. She was lucky today, but she was praised by these people to the point that she thought she was a chivalrous woman. He had to catch a thief, record a statement, and be pulled by that woman to thank her. It took Su Qingsang quite a while to convince the woman to give her a reward and treat her to a meal. After all the work was done, Su Qingsang walked out of the police station and finally felt cold again. She didn't want to buy any more clothes. He took out his phone to check the time. There were more than 30 missed calls. They were all from Hua Jinyao. Su Qingsang was stunned for a moment, then realized that she had accidentally pressed the mute button. No wonder she didn't hear it. She called Hua Jinyao back. His voice sounded eager. "Honey, where are you?" Half an hour later, Hua Jinyao saw Su Qingsang in front of him again. Without saying a word, he hugged her. "Where did you go? Do you know you scared me to death? I thought you went back to Lin City." It was okay to return to Lin City, but he was afraid. Chapter 234. How is that possible? Su Qingsang tried to hide her fear for Hua Jinyao. "I just got bored in there, so I wanted to come out for some fresh air." "Come out for some fresh air? Why didn't you answer my call?" Hua Jinyao almost called the police. "Do you know how worried I was about you?" "Sorry, I accidentally muted my phone. It wasn't on purpose. It was really an accident." Looking at the calm look on her face, Hua Jinyao couldn't help but pinch her cheek. "Don't do that again." "Okay, I'm fine now, aren't I?" She rushed to Tianyu as soon as she received Hua Jinyao's call. Hua Jinyao looked at her and restrained himself from pinching her face. He took her hand and led her into the building. "I still have some work to do. Wait for me and I'll go to dinner with you, okay?" "Okay. Next time you go out, you must tell me. You're not familiar with this place. I'll be worried about you, you know?" "Okay." Su Qingsang didn't argue with Hua Jinyao about these things. In fact, she just wanted to relax. Who knew that those things would happen? Wife. After entering the elevator, Hu Jinyao suddenly put his arms around her waist. Are you angry? Angry? Why would I be angry? Because of going back to Lin City. Hu Jinyao looked into her eyes. In fact, he wanted to know if she really didn't want to stay. I'm not angry. Su Qingsang really wasn't angry. She was just a little bored. You said you're not angry. Hu Jinyao pinched her cheek. Look at your face. Your whole face is showing me that I'm unhappy, I'm very unhappy, and you've made me angry. No way. Su Qingsang was amused by him. What nonsense are you talking about? No way? Look at your face. Hu Jinyao turned her face to look at the mirror wall. There was an amber mirror on the bright elevator wall. Su Qingsang looked at it and saw Hu Jinyao's face in the mirror. She turned around and looked at him. Hu Jinyao, you. When the elevator arrived, Hu Jinyao's secretary was standing at the door with a document in her hand. He signaled for her to go back to his office first. He signed the documents and made some arrangements before entering his office. Su Qingsang was reading the news on her tablet. Hu Jinyao didn't want to disturb her. After dealing with business, he had time to be alone. Time passed slowly. Hu Jinyao moved quickly. Shortly after nightfall, he disposed of the remaining papers. After that, he found that Su Qingsang's body was curled up on the sofa as if she was about to fall asleep. Hu Jinyao sat down on the sofa. As soon as his hand touched Su Qingsang's face, she woke up. Su Qingsang yawned, rubbed her cheek against his palm and asked, Are you done? Done. Hu Jinyao supported her and gestured for her to sit up. Are you very sleepy? Nope. I'm not sleepy. He was just a little bored waiting. Can we go now? Yes. Hu Jinyao nodded and stood up to help Su Qingsang. However, she had been in the same position for too long. As soon as she stood up, her feet went numb and she sat back down. Her expression was a little strange. Hu Jinyao immediately guessed it. He put her coat on the sofa in her arms and picked her up. Chapter 235. Put me down. Su Qingsang was embarrassed. This was his company. What did he want to do? Can you walk? Are your feet numb? Yes. But, no buts. Hu Jinyao picked her up and walked to the door. When he passed by the door, he gestured for Su Qingsang to take his suit jacket. Su Qingsang couldn't push him away now. She was originally holding her own clothes, but now she was holding Hu Jinyao's clothes. The two of them left the office. Most people on this floor had already gotten off work. Hu Jinyao carried her to the elevator. Su Qingsang was a little embarrassed, but seeing that no one was around, she relaxed a lot. However, when she looked at the scene of herself in Hu Jinyao's arms in the mirror wall, her face was still a little red. Put me down. There were cameras in the elevator. Wasn't he afraid that his image in the company would be ruined? No. You're my wife. What's wrong with me holding you? How could Hu Jinyao not know there were cameras? So what? He and Su Qingsang were a serious husband and wife. Besides, he could get someone to take out the video tomorrow. Thinking of this, he became a little bolder. He looked at Su Qingsang's red lips and kissed her. Not only do I want to hold you, but I also want to kiss you. Hu Jinyao. Wasn't he enough? Where did he think he was? Hu Jinyao liked to see her like this. She pouted her lips slightly, and her face was a little angry and a little coquettish. What's wrong with me? Tell me. As he spoke, he kissed her again. Su Qingsang's face became redder, and she felt more uncomfortable. Hu Jinyao, put me down. She called him by his full name again. Hu Jinyao had long noticed that when Su Qingsang called him, it was always Hu Jinyao. She didn't seem to have called him wife even once. Or Jinyao. Not in bed. He often used tricks on her. Hu Jinyao suddenly put his face next to Su Qingsang's cheek. He pressed his forehead against hers and looked into her eyes. The two of them breathed in the same breath and the atmosphere was very intimate. How about you call me husband and I'll put you down? Su Qingsang looked at his enlarged face and the faint smile in his eyes. He looked down. Stop messing around. If you don't scream, I'll carry you all the way today. Anyway, she was light. He worked out all year round and had a good body. Carrying her was a piece of cake. Hu Jinyao. Su Qingsang bit her lip and looked at the elevator going lower and lower. Put me down, she said anxiously. You're calling me dear husband, aren't you? I'll put you down right away. What do you think? Su Qingsang's face was burning. She was too embarrassed to call him that. Don't mess around. Hu Jinyao clicked his tongue and said, It seems that you enjoy my embrace more. Since that's the case, just keep hugging it. Su Qingsang was very embarrassed. It was okay to be in the elevator. The elevator was about to reach the underground parking lot. If someone saw it, the elevator arrived and the door was about to open. Hua Jinyao moved closer. Hurry up and call. Su Qingsang bit her lip and was about to say something when the door opened and someone happened to be standing outside. Su Qingsang was shocked. The voice that was about to come out stopped there. The person standing at the door was none other than Hui Yifan. He held the car key in his hand and seemed to be planning to go upstairs. Chapter 236. Hua Jinyao, who always suppressed him in the company's board of directors and was never polite to him in private meetings, was hugging his new wife intimately. The two of them seemed to be planning to do something amazing. Realizing this, Hui Yifan raised the corners of his mouth with a playful expression on his face. Big brother, you're in a good mood. Did you just work overtime? He emphasized the word, overtime. The meaning was obvious. Hua Jinyao was quite calm. Even if Hui Yifan saw it, he didn't intend to let go of Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang was very embarrassed. She gestured for him to let go of her several times, but he didn't move. She couldn't help but pat his back again. Hua Jinyao just looked at Hui Yifan as if he didn't see it. Yes. I just finished working overtime. I haven't been here for a few days and there's been a lot of work in the company. Really? I thought that big brother had always handled the company with ease. Who knew that there would be times when you have to work overtime? Hui Yifan nodded, looking as if he understood and didn't need to explain. Of course it's easy for me to handle it. But aren't you already off work? What are you doing? I forgot something upstairs. I'm going to get it now. Hui Yifan spread his hands. I'm just an idler. I can't compare to you working overtime at this hour. It's also hard. When he said it was hard, he didn't forget to look at Su Qingsang in Hua Jinyao's arms meaningfully. Wasn't it hard? He didn't come to work for a while and when he did, he brought his wife to the company. Only Hua Jinyao would be able to do something like this without separating public and private interests, wouldn't he? Su Qingsang chose to pretend to be dead in the face of the two of them arguing. At the same time, she didn't forget to signal Hua Jinyao to let her down. Hua Jinyao only looked at Hui Yifan as if he didn't see her movements. It's my duty. After all, my brother is too useless so I have to work harder. Don't you think so? Hui Yifan's expression suddenly became ugly. In that case, I can only trouble you to work harder, brother. Of course. After saying that, Hua Jinyao carried Su Qingsang out. Su Qingsang tried several times, but Hua Jinyao didn't let go of her. She was so embarrassed that she buried her face in Hua Jinyao's chest. When Hua Jinyao put her in his car, she covered her face and found that it was burning. It's all your fault. She was almost too ashamed to see anyone now. What happened to me? Hua Jinyao went around to the other side to open the car door. He didn't think he had done anything wrong. Don't worry. He won't dare to say anything. Hua Jinyao. Was this something he was spouting nonsense? After all, she was Hui Yifan's sister-in-law. Now that he saw her like this, it's okay. Hua Jinyao suddenly felt that Su Qingsang's blushing face was really cute, and at the same time he found it a little funny. Honey, you're a married couple that I've held a marriage certificate with. So what if I hug you? Su Qingsang didn't want to talk to him anymore. Seeing her like this, Hua Jinyao couldn't help but lean over and kiss her on the cheek. Alright, let's go eat. Su Qingsang touched her forehead helplessly. Looking out of the window, she suddenly felt that Hua Jinyao becoming the president of Tianyu Group might really be a mistake by the old master. Otherwise, how could this happen? What are you thinking about? Hua Jinyao started the car. Because it was still the evening rush hour, the car was very slow, so he had time to chat with Su Qingsang. Su Qingsang shook her head, got rid of those speculations and changed the subject. Chapter 237. She didn't just dislike him. Just now, she clearly hated him to the point of wanting to go against Hua Jinyao. She recalled that it was the same in the Hua family. She even had a vague feeling that in the entire Hua family except for old Master Hua, no one else liked Hua Jinyao. Why was that? He was the eldest son, wasn't he? Wasn't that too strange? Su Qingsang sensed that something was wrong, but she couldn't figure out what it was. Hua Jinyao didn't say anything and just focused on driving. Su Qingsang looked at him and wanted to say something, but in the end she didn't want to ask any more. It didn't feel good to be disliked by others, especially by one's own family. What do you want to eat tonight? There was a red light ahead. Hua Jinyao glanced at her. She thought for a moment and said, Let's go home. You've been away for so long. Let's go home and have dinner with Grandpa. Don't always eat out. Hearing this, Hu Jinyao turned around and held her hand. Are you being filial for me? You don't like it? I like it. I like it very much. Hu Jinyao chuckled. In fact, Su Qingsang was a simple person. If others were good to her, she would be good to them. She didn't like the Hua family, but old Master Hua was good to her, so she thought about him. Okay, let's go home. In fact, if it weren't for Lu Tongjia, he would have wanted to go home. He was just afraid that she wouldn't want to see them and feel uncomfortable. Hua Mingliang and Hua Mingmei usually didn't eat at the Hua family mansion. When they got home, only old Master Hua, Hua Mingguang, Lu Tongjia, Su Qingsang and Hu Jinyao had dinner together. Old Master Hua was very happy to see his grandson back for dinner. He thought that his grandson wouldn't come back. Su Qingsang was happy to see her grandfather so happy, so she sat next to him. Hua Mingguang was a little surprised to see this scene in front of him. This daughter-in-law had some sense. She knew who in this family needed to be pleased the most. Su Qingsang was already hungry. After all, she had helped catch the thief in the afternoon. With Hu Jinyao around, they were able to enjoy the meal quite comfortably. Except for Lu Tongjia's occasional glances. However, Su Qingsang had already calmed down a lot. After all, for people who didn't like you, no matter how much you did, they didn't like you. After dinner, the group went to the living room. Old Master Hua asked someone to bring out a chessboard and played chess with Hu Jinyao. Su Qingsang sat next to Hu Jinyao and watched them play chess. She didn't know much about chess, but she barely knew the rules. She knew that Hu Jinyao was good at chess. She knew that he could beat Old Master Li in chess. What she didn't expect was that Hu Jinyao could even defeat Old Master Hua. Lu Tongjia felt suffocated as she watched the loving and harmonious scene between the grandfather and grandson. She stood up and was about to leave, but Hua Mingguang held her arm and asked her to sit down. Lu Tongjia glared at her husband. It was his business if he wanted to stay and watch. She didn't want to. She wanted to stand up again, but Hua Mingguang pressed her down again. At the same time, he picked up the remote control and turned on the TV. Su Qingsang was watching chess attentively. She suddenly heard the sound of the TV and glanced at the screen. After seeing it, she exclaimed in surprise. Chapter 238. Today, a Good Samaritan incident happened in our city. Because I was there, I have the first piece of information. Su Qingsang looked at the introduction below and realized that the woman was actually a host of the local TV station in Rong City. She didn't add fuel to the fire. Instead, she vividly described how Su Qingsang had saved the man's life. After saying that, her expression changed. Unfortunately, this warm-hearted young lady refused to accept my gratitude. She left after doing a good deed. I really want to see this beautiful and brave lady now. I really want to thank her. Su Qingsang almost wanted to laugh. No wonder this woman was so talkative at the police station. So she was a host? But the mood changed again. The host smiled brightly and gently moved a finger. I know the name of my benefactor. Su Qingsang was shocked. Sure enough. Please see my beautiful and brave Miss Su Qingsang from the distant Lin City, or if there is a kind-hearted person who knows Miss Su Qingsang's whereabouts, please give me Miss Su's contact information or address. I want to visit her to thank her. Su Qingsang wasn't the only one staring at the screen. Everyone else was staring at the screen. After reading this part of the news, everyone turned to look at Su Qingsang. From Lin City named Su Qingsang? Hu Jinyao narrowed his eyes and stopped playing chess. Honey, the person she was talking about isn't you, is it? Su Qingsang smiled a little awkwardly. Would you believe me if I said no? Honey. Hu Jinyao held her hand tightly. I didn't know you were so good at martial arts. Don't listen to that person. I don't have any martial arts skills. Su Qingsang held her forehead. I was just lucky today. You call that luck when you defeated the enemy in one move? Hu Jinyao didn't believe it at all. I said that woman was talking nonsense. How could she be so good? Su Qingsang looked at these people and explained what happened during the day in a low voice. What she said was completely different from what the host said. However, it didn't stop the Hua family from listening carefully. Especially old Master Hua. He had wanted to be a soldier before. But because he had to take care of his family's business, he wanted to support them in another way. Therefore, the person who joined the army that year was his brother, Hu Yangyuan. Later, because Hu Yangyuan was injured on the battlefield, he was transferred to a civilian position. Hearing Su Qingsang's courage and boldness, he was very happy. Good. Okay. He's a good boy. Grandpa. Su Qingsang blushed. It's really not a big deal. It's just a very small matter. It's already amazing enough that I helped when I saw injustice. Furthermore, he was able to remain calm and composed. All right. It's really rare. Old Master Hua looked at Hua Jinyao as he spoke. Jinyao, you've married a good wife. Of course. Hua Jinyao put his arm around Su Qingsang's shoulders. When Old Master Hua praised her, he also praised himself. I've always had good taste. Yes, good. Old Master Hua was happy. Qingsang, don't be in a hurry to leave. Stay for a few more days. I'm glad you're here. I will. Chapter 239. Lu Tongjia's face darkened again. Hua Mingguang didn't say a word. When Old Master Hua felt tired and went upstairs, the two of them also went upstairs and left. Su Qingsang breathed a sigh of relief. She didn't feel so comfortable when the elders were there, especially when Lu Tongjia was there. Before she could completely relax, Hua Jinyao's body had completely leaned over. Honey, what are you doing? Although it was late, there were still servants in the Hua family who were still awake. Nothing. I just wanted to wake you up. Hua Jinyao wrapped his arms around her waist and rested his chin on her shoulder. I suddenly realized that my wife is very good. Stop it. Really? Very, very good. Hua Jinyao added, then leaned over and kissed her on the neck. Honey, why do you think you're so likable? Stop messing around. If someone saw this, she would really die of embarrassment. I'm not messing around. I'm praising you, honey. As Hua Jinyao spoke, he simply picked up her body and put her on his lap. Honey, I discovered something. What? Just now, I met someone else and let you escape. You haven't called me husband yet. Su Qingsang blushed again, feeling very uncomfortable. She quickly moved away from Hua Jinyao's arms. It's getting late. I'm going to take a shower. Su Qingsang ran as fast as a little rabbit. Don't run. Hua Jinyao got up and chased her. Are you going to call me husband or not? Su Qingsang pretended not to hear him and ran faster and faster. Hua Jinyao quickly caught up with her. When Su Qingsang ran back to the room, there was nowhere to run. Hua Jinyao closed the door with an evil smile. Honey, you ran up here yourself. Don't blame me. All the exclamations were muffled by the heavy wooden door, and no one outside could hear anything. Another place in Rong City. It was a small courtyard with 2 entrances. It was very quiet inside, far away from the road. The TV was on, and an auntie brought the dishes to the table. Then she called into the inner room. Sister Xiang, dinner is ready. Let's eat. The auntie was from Sichuan, and her Sichuan dialect hadn't changed. There was no response, only the sound of a chair being pulled. After a while, the person inside came out. She was a middle-aged woman in her 50s. Her gray hair was tied up at the back of her head. The wrinkles on his face were obvious, and there were even a few spots on his face. He sat down in front of the table. The auntie turned on the TV and sat down on the other side. The news was also playing on the TV. It was the same broadcast in the same city. Both of them watched this program. Sister Xiang was scooping soup for herself when she suddenly heard Su Qingsang's name. She suddenly put down the bowl and stared at the TV screen. The name Su Qingsang had appeared several times, but she seemed to have only heard it once in Lin City. In order to make sure that she didn't hear it wrong, she asked the auntie to replay the TV again. Soon the news was broadcasted again. This time, Sister Xiang heard it clearly. Lin City, Su Qingsang. Surnamed Su, and with this name? That's right, it can't be wrong. It was her. It had to be her. She still remembered that when she was with that heartless man, they had a wonderful time. She said that she liked the name Qingsang. If she had a daughter in the future, she would call her Qingsang. If she had a son, she would call him Qinghe. Su Qingsang, Su Qingsang. Sister Xiang repeated the name twice in her heart. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.